Oh God. Oh shit. Crazy. Fuck.
That nigga took that. How you doing?
Huh? What?
Took that. How you
Was he gonna eat it? I don't know. Good cake. Yeah. Skibbity toilet. Skibbity toilet. Okay, yan. My dick hurts. I feel like I sat on my balls. I don't know why. Ah! Ayo. Yeah. When that been 6 multiverse, boy, shit, I'm gonna get these assholes. My stomach. I feel like I'm finna throw up. Once I found that I was lying on the ground. Yeah, last. I got you. Whoa. I'm getting. What you get? Yeah. Bit fat. I'm gonna show. I'm gonna show that song. Look at this shit. I can't even lie. You been on my mind. I just wanna say hi. My dude. My nigga Carter Kensher came back. Oh, Jesus. What the hell are we doing here? I ain't no cuss. They ain't know that I mean nothing. Cool, let me see.
I was on a week-long hunting trip, and I was staying in my uncle. I was on a week-long hunting trip, and I was staying in my uncle's cabin in the dead middle of winter. It was a long day, and I was about to head back to the cabin shortly. It had been snowing lightly on and off all day, but out of nowhere the snow picked up very quickly and turned into a very dense snowstorm. It was getting late, and I had a long way to walk back to the cabin, and I was honestly terrified. Because it felt like every minute that passed by, the storm was getting worse and worse. It was almost a miracle that I saw a light up ahead. It was a really bright light, but it shines dimly from where I could see, just enough for me to notice it. As I got closer, I soon realized it was another cabin. My adrenaline instantly sparked, and I was happy to have found potential shelter.
On her face and watch you kiss that hoe.
I would have had to walk miles upon miles in that blizzard to get back to my uncle's cabin, and I would have been screwed. I thought for sure I would have found myself lost in the blizzard searching for my cabin had I taken that route instead. Knowing what I know now, though, and with what happened to me, I wish I would have just manned the fuck up and found my way back to my cabin. But I could barely even see what's in front of me. And ultimately, that played a huge part in the final decision of me trying to get in contact with whoever was inside. I was just hoping my luck wouldn't have run out completely. What was the chance this guy was actually going to be a serial killer or something like that? I convinced myself that shelter was worth the risk. I approached the cabin and I knocked on the door. I heard footsteps that seemed like they were getting closer to me. I waited another 30 seconds maybe and politely knocked once again.
I really need
and opened the door, and I explained to him my situation. He let me in with open arms and let me stay for the night, surprisingly. I told him I would be gone first thing in the morning. This guy kind of gave me the creeps, but being totally serious here, I wasn't that worried about it. People out here were known for being that way. Not necessarily creepy, but I could sense he wasn't the extroverted type, let me just put it that way. He barely spoke to me at all. He gave me a pillow and told me I could sleep on his couch in the main room.
Kenny.
I tried making small talk with him, but that didn't go very well. I didn't want to bother him, so I thanked him once again for letting me stay, and I told him I was going to try and get some rest. I laid my head down on the pillow, and I was getting ready to relax. The man was now standing behind me, so he was completely out of my sight. I was waiting for him to walk away, but he stood there for a good 30 seconds or so, and he didn't make a sound. I thought that was kind of weird, but still, I didn't think much of it. Then he turned the light off over the sink, which was the only light that was still on in the cabin at the time. I figured that meant he was finally going to lay down as well, but I was wrong. He walked away towards his room, and I started to doze off within minutes. What the fuck was that? I sat up so quick that I almost threw myself off of the couch. I looked back and all around me, but it was pitch black. I couldn't see a thing. Everything all right back there? I asked. But there was no reply. To which I then stated, "Alright, good night then." I was genuinely starting to get anxious, and I started to rethink my decision of staying there. I convinced myself that it was nothing though, and that I should just try to fall back asleep. I finally fell asleep maybe 15 to 20 minutes after that, and I have no idea how long I was out for, when all of a sudden, I woke to the guy on top of me.
Whoa, buddy.
At first he was literally only just laying on me, long ways. His body was stiff as ever.
What?
I awoke within seconds, and I tried to get him off me. He was much stronger than me, though.
Right.
He then started choking me and smelling me, like smelling my hair and touching my face.
Right.
He even tried to kiss me.
Nigga, what?
I managed to headbutt him, which in turn gave me just enough time to gain the upper hand and throw him off of me. I ran for the door immediately, and I forgot. Shit. Just as I was about to leave, I realized I couldn't leave without my gun. I turned back around to grab it, and there he was pointing my own rifle at me.
Why you forget your own?
I was close enough to him and fast enough that I managed to duck and weave and disarm the man. He was a bit older, and that gave me the confidence to do what I had done. I hit him with the butt of my rifle, and I ran out the door. It was still snowing out really bad, but I could tell that it lightened up just a bit.
And you still haven't
It was a
taken
long
down.
night, and it took me hours to find my cabin, as I had to walk at least 2 miles. And that's if I took a linear path to the cabin. I was walking around aimlessly for quite some time, just winging it, in 7 to 8 inches of snow in the middle of the night, with a snowstorm clouding my vision on top of that. I later found out from the police that the person who owned that cabin had mysteriously disappeared years ago, and no one has owned it since. That legit gave me shivers when the officer told me that. That guy was going to kill me. The scariest thing about it is, I don't think they caught the guy yet either.
Nigga, what? You left your gun with the nigga?
Hardee's warm, melted cinnamon raisin biscuits are back to sweeten your...
2 winters ago, my dad got me a car for my birthday. Not only was it new, but it was also my first car.
Oh, a BMW black.
I had just gotten my license a month prior, and my father felt that I earned it. I was really excited, but the only problem was that we had just got hit with a really bad snowstorm. Literally the same day, the day of my birthday. So obviously, that meant I wasn't going to be able to do any driving anytime soon. Until the snow at least cleared up a bit anyways. I was really bummed out about the snowstorm, but I was thankful for the car. Skip ahead to that same night, I was sitting in my room, and I was pondering the decision of taking my new car for a spin. I almost convinced myself to do it, but I knew my dad would kill me if he found out that I snuck out and drove without his permission, and especially with how shitty the roads were. The roads were absolutely horrible, and I knew it was a bad idea, so I decided against it. Fast forward to the next night, I had been telling all my friends about my car and how excited I was. My friend Eric ended up asking me if I wanted to hang out that night, but I told him I couldn't. He later stated that he really wanted to get out of the house because I guess his dad was being shitty again or something. I don't want to get into this part too much, but basically from what I understand, Eric's dad is a horrible person that has been physically abusing him for years now.
Damn.
Eric said his dad had another drunken outburst and practically begged me to pick him up, so I did. After all, I wasn't going to leave my friend there all alone and not do something about it. I made my way out to the car and I had to sneak out my bedroom window. As I was driving down the road along the way, I noticed an old man in the middle of the road. I could barely see him because it was snowing quite heavily and I didn't have enough time to stop because the roads were so icy. But I had no choice other than to slam on my brakes in a panic because I was about to hit the man. The wheels lost all traction and I very quickly started to spin out. Before I knew it, I was swerving onto the other side of the road and I crashed into a ditch. I started panicking, not sure what to do. All I could think about was how fucked I was and that once my dad found out, he was going to literally murder me. The man from earlier that was in the middle of the road made his way over to me, to my driver's side door, and asked me if I was okay. I told him that I was fine and that I wasn't hurt at all. I got the creeps from this man right off the bat, and I really wanted him to get the hell away from me, honestly. I politely as possible told him to leave me alone and that I had to go. He got the hint and he stepped away from my car. I wasn't even paying much attention to where he went. All I know is that he continued walking the way he was going when I first saw him, which was the opposite direction that I was going. I reached for my phone so I could call my dad to pick me up, but that was when I realized my phone wasn't in my pocket. I began looking all over for it and I searched my car everywhere. I knew I didn't forget to bring it with me when I left the house because I vividly remember typing in Eric's address in my Maps app on my iPhone because I didn't quite remember how to get to his house.
How do you...
The only thing I could do was run home, and luckily I didn't make it too far in my car before I spun out because I would have had to have walked a lot further than the 3 or 4 miles that I had to walk. When I got home, I told my dad everything and he was pissed. He managed to pull my car out of the ditch with his truck and he had my mom drive it home. He ended up taking the keys from me, and he told me that we would talk about it all tomorrow. And I felt horrible for what I'd done. I've actually never seen my dad that upset in my entire life. As I was lying in bed that night, I was still trying to figure out where my phone was. I was getting really angry because I had no idea what I did with it. I couldn't find it anywhere. I honestly thought that in my heart I lost it somehow when I crashed and that it was buried in the snow somewhere. Even though that seemed extremely unlikely to me at the time, that's the only thing I could think of that felt somewhat logical. All of a sudden, I heard something that sounded like it came from outside. It jump scared me pretty bad as I was deep in thought, and the last thing I expected was someone or something to be at my window. I chalked it up to be that it was probably just an animal, and I forgot about it completely with only a few minutes. I wish I wouldn't have let my guard down so fast, though, because maybe, just maybe, things would have went down a lot differently than they did that night. All of a sudden, I heard a knocking sound. Right away, I could tell it came from my window. I turned my head and looked over at the window so fast that it hurt my neck. There was a guy standing there a few feet from the window outside looking in. Couldn't tell who it was or what he looked like because it was too dark. All I could make out was that he was kind of tall and had long hair, like the guy from earlier, I thought. Couldn't believe what I saw, and I immediately ran to get my dad again. When we came back to my room, my bedroom window was wide open and my phone was sitting on my bed. I had no idea what to make of it all at first, but it had to have been that man from earlier that I spoke with briefly after the crash. He must have followed me home. Why the hell would he have taken my phone? And if he was attempting to steal it, why would he bring it back? If he was just trying to do a good deed, why the hell would he sneak through my damn window in the middle of the night instead of knocking on the front door like a normal person?
I don't know. Well, yeah,
of course, I looked all over for him, hoping he wasn't still in our house. My dad and I spent over 20 minutes easily looking for him, but he was gone. Called the police, but there wasn't much we could do. With the little evidence we had, I could give them a description of the man, but that was about it. Just under a week later, I saw him once again. He was in our backyard in the middle of the night, doing who knows what.
Oh,
I walked outside as soon as I saw him, and I yelled at him from the back patio. I told him to leave and to never come back.
Tell me, Mexican Mosquitoes.
I got my dad as well, and once again, by the time my dad showed up to the scene, he was gone.
Shit,
I'm not sure what the hell this guy wanted or what he was trying to do, but I haven't seen him since the last time I just told you about. I still get the occasional thought about him, and he's going to try to come back at some point, even though this happened 2 years ago. Needless to say, I learned my lesson that night about a couple things.
There's a shortcut to platinum status in the Fuel Rewards program.
Yeah, this shit not scary. That shit not fucking scary. I should have cracked jokes all fucking day. I be cracking. Oh. When I say old Toodles, you about to be like Donald and Duck. No, for real, I'm dead ass serious. Come to my house on an ounce. You can call me Mickey. Now I got this master tool. And we all got him goofy ass here that. You about to be like Donald Duck and Duck. Cause I'm not stopping till I hit you. What? They trying to hate on me. Cause it's not my fault your girlfriend came over to my house talking about she wanted me to do it. Shit. Can you blame her? Look at this. George of the jungle. Watch out for that tree. I've been doing dumb shit. I did something stupid. I just need it. I just need the wins. That's right. Okay. Natasha, what you doing, girl? Cooking with Fred. Cooking with Kaya. Cooking with cooking. Alright, Bernie. Bernie. The fuck? Hey, Bernie. The Santa Claus. When that Superman game gonna come out? My nigga Corey back. I missed the car. I catch you. I was in the kitchen with your girlfriend.
I'm not a trip, I'm a permanent blood clot. I'm always live my eyes permanent bloodshot. The clock to my hip is a permanent click. Permanently got a give me love all of the bitch that I choose. Hell can't sit in the juice. If he took away when it's in the use. I do what I want when I do what I do. Trust me, I got nothing to lose. Touch me, and you're like you lose. He lost his life and he can't get it back. Came to the trap and went straight to the back. Cause no crack work in my lap. You could do it, knock at the door. Come to the door, put it under the floor. Stash everything I need, everything here. I let him come in and they do what they did. AK in the center, XP in the fridge. I roll my weed up on her blood tops. Cotton candy bag on my favorite soda pop. I made Diego was standing on SpongeBob. More ammo than gunshot. I'm not a trip, I'm a permanent blood clot.
You know what I was randomly thinking about?
99%.
The Holy King's capital of Sataway! Straight through the candy cane woods, and right through the floppy cloppy swamp, and right along Sugar Plum Mountain.
And we have to go across those 5 little panels where if you hit one at random, a giant hand grabs you and takes you down into another level.
Do we have time to stop at the sloppy gloppy swamp? There's no time! You have to stay with you in time, the submarine! Fine! The Holy King is in trouble, clearly!
After we're done, can we stop by Candied Island? I've always wanted to go.
Well, Candied Island is pretty far away from here. There's Candied Land, not Candied Island. They're two different things.
Candy
Mountain. I do hope Grandma doesn't. No! The Holy King.
Oh shit. Yeah. What you trying to say? Ain't doing shit with me. I'll put you on a t-shirt for free. Let you know that.
Alright, so Lil Durk had a problem. As some of you may know, he was just arrested recently for allegedly hiring people to Quando Rondo. Those people, Quando Rondo's cousin, but well, that's still very
Multiverse,
so
actually.
they arrested Lil Durk. Now, I want you to listen to this next part carefully. You see, how
I
they
just got off that
basically
game,
caught Lil
and I'm
Durk,
on
I
YouTube.
explained it in some other video, but in a nutshell, the people he hired were
I was stressed.
stupid, and they left a lot of
They had me
alleged
stressed
trails that
out.
led back to them. The police went over and said, hey, y'all want to sue or y'all trying to go to jail? Some of them said,
Hell no.
oh,
Can't do it.
that's what I'm saying. Now, this is a trend you'll find in a lot of cases. Somebody messes up, police go over to them and say, hey, we got you, you messed up. Give us everyone else or you're going to jail forever. Usually people start saying, that also applies to another case Lil Durk is allegedly involved in, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Lil Durk, again, had a problem. The people he be hiring don't be thinking. So for this case we just talked about Quando Rondo's cousin tragically getting, Lil Durk said, look, I ain't doing, give me bail. That means release me until my trial actually comes and then we could talk about it. A judge then decides, hey, should I give this person bail or not? So Lil
Do you
Durk's
play
lawyers
Marvel
come out and
Horizon
say, look, it's
or
Lil Durk, it's
Multiverse
Durky,
or
yo,
Fortnite?
he's famous, he not running away. Plus, we'll give y'all $3 million for bail. The bigger the number, usually a judge might let him go. The other side, the prosecutors, the police are like, no, Lil Durk is a danger. He has a lot of power, and our witnesses might be in a lot of trouble if y'all let him go. The judge said, well, how y'all know that? The police said, well, we got another case for you, and it's a doozy. So then police released details on Lil Durk's alleged revenge against the people that his brother. Now, his brother's name is D-Thang. D-Thang and Lil Durk, very, very close. And the thing about Lil Durk is he be riding for his people. His label's called OTF, Only the Family. So people he considers family, he's very connected to. So his brother one day goes to the Ops neighborhood for a party. He at a club, he having fun. The Ops say, what's he doing here? They confront him, an argument ensues, and D-Thang is tragically. Now, Lil Durk is torn apart by this because his close friend King Von and his brother get around the same time. Like, it really puts him in a dark place. So, allegedly, then Lil Durk says, hey, it's time to them folk that my brother. Now, Lil Durk is way too famous to be running around doing this by himself. So he says, yo, let me hire some people to do it. I got money. Now, you can see a lot of similarities to the Quando Rondo situation if you've seen that video or you've heard the story before. So Lil Durk basically puts out a message. Anybody that wants to, those people that, my brother, let me know. Lil Durk is a big guy in the streets, but he can't just tap somebody and say, yo, go. Those people, this ain't the mafia. People are gonna be like, yo, no, I'm not risking jail forever. So Lil Durk puts out a message. Whoever wants to do it, come forth. 2 people come forth. Say, hey, we're willing to do it. Now the streets talk. Rumor has it this person did it. Rumor has it that person did it. But a big rumor starts floating around that this dude named Fred did it. No, Fred's not his real name, but I'm not gonna use their real names or their real pictures because I don't know. People get whatever. They say, look, Fred did this, Durk. So Durk says, great, y'all 2 that I just hired, Shaggy and Scooby, y'all gonna get this done. Now, here's where things start to get stupid. Shaggy and Scooby say, gotcha. Shaggy and Scooby are hopping a whip. They start driving around Chicago. They get the drop on Fred. That means they find his location. They start waiting for Fred. They see Fred walking down the street. They get out the car. They chase him down. Now, how do police know all this? Well, there's cameras everywhere. But Shaggy and Scooby aren't that stupid. They got masks on, they got shiesties, they got everything black. You can't tell us them. All good. So they chase Fred down. They get Fred. Shaggy turns around and says, yo, Scooby! Starts shouting out his real name. Now, technically, he's shouting out his street name, but it might as well be his real name. He says, yo, Scooby! Scooby, where you at? Scooby, like, hey,
What the hell, nigga? Why you gonna say the nigga name?
they hop back in the car. Shaggy puts his phone in the charger. Scooby said, hey, man, why you calling my name? Shaggy said, man, ain't nobody heard all that. Shaggy puts his phone in the charger, puts his phone down. They get out the car. They leave the car because it's an abandoned, stolen car. They leave it. Shaggy leaves the phone in the car. Police find the car. They find the phone. They say, you can't make this up. Grab the phone. They find out the phone is Shaggy's girlfriend's phone. They say, all right. They go over to Shaggy's girlfriend. They say, yo, you know Shaggy? She goes, no. They go, you sure about that? Because we have a video of you in that stolen car getting food. And somebody dropped you off to get food. Who dropped you off? She said, I don't know. They said, that's okay. Shaggy, somebody, and if you got them food and you got them gloves, you got them everything they need, well, that makes you an accomplice. Can you say life in prison? She said, no, but I can sing though. Shaggy is a felon. Oh, she starts singing for real. Understand? So she ain't even gotta say. She said, I bet Shaggy did it. He a bad dude. She said, matter of fact, I bet he took my phone too. I ain't seen my phone, all that. Now, like I said, on my video, this is the police's game. Remember, this whole time, they're not going after Shaggy, Scooby, this, that, and the third. They're going for Lil Durk. He's the king. But to get to the king, you gotta go through the pawns, the knights, the bishops. Right now, they're talking to a pawn, which is Shaggy's girlfriend. A pawn, easy to fold. They didn't do anything too crazy, but police are telling them, look, somebody, you finna go to jail for life with them. Or just tell us what they did. Allegedly. Same thing for Lil
Allegedly,
Durk's trial that
they
they
killed
actually really won him for. Quando Rondo's cousin. They hit up people who booked the flights. They hit up people who set people up together. They get the pawns to connect the knights and the bishops to the king. If you've never played chess before and this all sounds confusing, then, well, I'm sorry. But anyway, back to the case with Durk's brother. So they knocked down the pawn. They figured out, okay, Shaggy, she said, he's connected all this. The girlfriend just basically confirmed it, but, well, they can't just go knocking down Shaggy's door. They need a lot more evidence. So now it's time to bring in other pieces. This is what the police usually do next. They'll look around for somebody that is probably connected to this whole thing, somebody that knows Lil Durk, and pick them up on like some random charge that they know they did, like a charge. Jail for like 4 years. Then they tell them, look, instead of 4 years, we'll give you 1 year, or maybe no years, if you tell us certain things that we want to know. So they pick up somebody who I believe was not in Lil Durk's gang, but was a rival Lil Durk's gang. So he's like, ooh, I would love to snitch. Now, gangs and their ops know everything about each other. They know the nicknames, they know where they stay, and all that. They trying to each other. So they tell bro, hey, look, you see this video of this dude calling out for Shaggy? You remember when he was calling out his bro's name? He said, you see this video? Is his real name Shaggy? The op said, yup. That's his real name, Shaggy. And he be hanging out with, you know what? He got a mask on, but that looked like Scooby. Police said, great, they getting a little closer. Shaggy and Scooby probably in the location. Shaggy girlfriend said Shaggy a bad dude. Matter of fact, Shaggy girlfriend comes in and says, y'all need me to unlock the phone? Police said, oh yeah, unlock the phone. She unlocks the phone. I said, okay, cool. They find that Shaggy got a bunch of missed calls from Scooby. They said, okay, well, that's enough. They knock on Shaggy's door and they say, yo, give us your phone. Shaggy said, what? I said, give us your phone. We got a search warrant. Give us your phone. Shaggy said, okay. He gives them the phone. The police grab the phone. They unlock the phone. They find a couple texts. And here's where it starts to get wicked. It's Shaggy texting Scooby. He says, yo, what's going on with OTF? Remember I told you, OTF, only the family. That's Lil Durk's record label. But don't worry, it's not on Lil Durk yet. Shaggy could be asking about anything. Scooby says, look, Shaggy, comes here on the 17th. It's assumed Shaggy's wondering when he's going to get paid. Scooby telling him he comes on the 17th. Shaggy says, so we get paid? Scooby said he comes on the 17th. 17th comes around. Shaggy says, hey, I saw you with Lil Durk. And now Lil Durk's name is mentioned. Ain't no he, ain't no OTF. He said, Shaggy said, I saw you with Lil Durk. Scooby don't reply. He probably thinking at this moment, Shaggy's stupid. But Shaggy don't stop there. Shaggy says, so did Lil Durk send you the money? And that is how we get to the king. The alleged people who did the saying, did Lil Durk give you the money? But if you know anything about the feds, they love to be extra sure that they are going to get their man. So they also said, oh, by the way, we listen to some of Durkio's songs. And a common trend Lil Durk likes to do is he likes to rap about things that maybe he shouldn't be rapping about. Look, they can't bring him to jail for lyrics, but they can reference them. Maybe not in actual court, but how these papers go is they say, look, this is what I found. Me being a police officer, me being a prosecutor, this is what I saw. I was listening to Lil Durk's song, and he said, yo, they got my brother D-Thang, so we got him back. And then Lil Durk proceeds to go into detail about how they got him back.
I got my baby back. I'm not saying
we're using lyrics, but all I'm saying is I heard this song, and Lil Durk said this. Now, the craziest part about the feds is, like I just told you,
for Christmas, I want a bag of weed, 2 fat bitches,
extra sure that that person that they charge is going to jail.
Meaning that
they had all of this information, but they wanted more. Sure, this information looks bad, but they didn't want a single chance that Lil Durk, who's going to hire an amazing lawyer, is just going to say, Shaggy and Scooby, I don't know what they talking about. They just crazy. You can't actually link the money that Lil Durk may or may not have sent, allegedly. So the feds didn't even use this to charge Lil Durk. They really want him for the Quando Rondo thing. Lil Durk allegedly hiring people to Quando Rondo's cousin. They are simply just using the story about Lil Durk getting revenge for his brother to paint a picture, just so Lil Durk doesn't get bail. The judge said, Lil Durk, you don't get bail. And well, Lil Durk was denied bail. As for what happened to Shaq and Scooby, I don't know if they got booked for this or not. See, the funny thing is, when it comes to snitching, not snitching, the whole thing really is a chess game. They didn't need those pieces, right? This whole thing, again, is to make sure Lil Durk doesn't get out for bail. So Shaggy and Scooby saying, hey, can you give us less time? We know we were connected to Lil Durk, this and that. Guys are like, we don't care. We just wanted him for the bail thing. We got enough. You guys can go to jail for life. Or maybe the feds use Shaggy and Scooby later. They might open up another case against Lil Durk. They might open up a separate case for Shaggy and Scooby. I believe they booked Shaggy and Scooby on different charges, and they're probably keeping them in jail until police can confirm if they actually did the revenge for Lil Durk's brother or not. I'm not so sure on that information, I'll be honest with you. Because I was mainly focused on showing y'all who Lil Durk is up against. And now you see who he's up against. But who knows? Lil Durk has really good lawyers. And this is all alleged. This is all alleged. Who knows if he's going to jail or not?
Going to jail. Nigga, you already in jail. What the hell are you talking about? That boy is not getting out. That boy is not getting the fuck out. Unless he got a good ass lawyer. Shit, probably. He's fat. I think I just shit myself. Nah, I just fart. My stomach hurts though.
On the 11th of May 2011, 6-year-old Timothy Pitson left. On the 11th of May 2011, 6-year-old Timothy Pitson left his school in Aurora, Illinois with his mother, Amy. Amy had shown up at the school unexpectedly, telling the staff that there was a family emergency. Timothy's teachers were caught off guard as something seemed to be severely off with Amy, but they let Timothy go with his mother, figuring everything was going to be okay. These are some of the most disturbing unsolved cases with video footage. As they drove away from the school, Timothy was excited. He loved spending time with his mother, and they were heading out on what seemed like a special adventure. Amy took him to a zoo, then a water park. It felt like a mini holiday, and a chance to have some fun together, just the two of them. They checked into hotels along the way, and at each stop, Amy made sure they had fun. Still, to Timothy, it was probably just an exciting trip with his mum. But there were signs that things weren't as simple as they seemed. Amy wasn't just taking a break, she was avoiding contact with Timothy's dad and other family members. She would call them every now and again, always sounding upbeat, but she never let Timothy talk to anyone. She'd say, he's fine, he's having fun, but never gave him the phone. When she called her husband, she told him not to worry and that they were fine in a very cheerful tone. But still, the phone calls left the family uneasy. Why wouldn't she let Timothy speak? The two kept moving from place to place. They stayed in a couple different hotels, moving further and further away from home. Amy was seen on hotel security cameras, and people who saw them said that Timothy looked happy, completely unaware that anything was about to happen. At one point, Amy visited a hardware store where she bought a few items that didn't seem to fit with a road trip. She purchased small things like a notebook and a pen. Things that just felt out of place. Amy seemed to be stalling, like she was trying to gain time, but no one knew for what. The choices she made only added to the mystery. Every call to her family sounded upbeat, yet the details made them anxious. Why did she seem so cheerful, but refused to explain what she was doing or let Timothy talk? Amy also checked into a hotel without Timothy for one night, a strange move that raised even more questions. Why would she go to a hotel by herself when Timothy was still with her? And where did she leave the 6-year-old? These unexplained decisions kept building up, leaving her family more worried with each passing day. When Amy made her last call to her mother-in-law, she sounded calm. She told her that everything was going smoothly and she shouldn't didn't worry about anything. But this time, her mother-in-law pressed her, asking directly to speak with Timothy. Though once again, Amy refused. This time, her excuse was simple. He's busy playing. Her voice was light-hearted, but there was something strange about her tone, as if she was masking something deeper. On the 14th of May 2011, Amy checked into a motel in Rockford, Illinois. By then, she and Timothy had been on the road for 3 days. That evening, Amy was spotted on security cameras one last time as she entered her room alone. Timothy was nowhere to be seen. The next day, motel staff found Amy dead in her room as she had ended her own life. It was a devastating discovery, but the shock didn't end there. Next to Amy's body, police found a note she had written, a message that only deepened the mystery. In her handwriting, Amy explained that Timothy was safe, but added something haunting: "You will never find him." But there was something else in the note that left Timothy's family and investigators terrified. Amy also wrote, "Timothy is safe with people who will care for him." This message seemed to suggest that she had left Timothy with someone she trusted, someone who could take care of him. But who were these people? And did they even exist? The note left Timothy's family in disbelief. Amy had assured everyone that they were fine, but now she was gone and Timothy was nowhere to be found. As the police combed through her car, they discovered traces of blood on the seat. They immediately tested it, and it was confirmed to be Timothy's. This finding raised new fears and new questions, as everyone was wondering what had really happened to Timothy. Was he in danger, or had he somehow been left in a safe place as Amy claimed? Investigators were caught between two possibilities. Either Amy had hidden him somewhere to protect him, or something much darker had occurred. Right after Amy's death, police launched an extensive search for Timothy. They retraced every step of her journey, hoping to uncover any clue that might lead them to him. Authorities examined maps, reviewed Amy's GPS records, and revisited every hotel and location she and Timothy had visited during those final days together. And they pored over surveillance footage, hoping to spot a moment, a clue, anything that could reveal where Amy had taken Timothy. As the search continued, investigators found more strange details. Amy's car showed signs that it had been through dirt roads and grassy areas. It was clear that she had probably been in remote locations, likely far away from any city or town, but where exactly? Search teams combed through forests, parks, and even isolated areas that matched the clues left by the dirt and plants found on her car. Yet despite these massive efforts, Timothy was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, the story of Timothy's disappearance began to spread across the country. News stations picked up the story, broadcasting pictures of Timothy with his bright smile and innocent eyes. His face appeared everywhere, on television, in newspapers, and on missing person posters. The public was captivated by the mystery, and as more details emerged about Amy's final days, people began forming their own theories. Timothy's father, Jim Pitson, became the face of the family's heartbreak and hope. Appearing on news interviews, he spoke openly about the pain of losing Amy and the agony of not knowing where his son was, though he still believed, as Amy's note had said, that Timothy truly was safe somewhere. The general reaction to the case was mixed. Some people sympathized with Jim and clung on to the idea that Timothy was still alive, somewhere out there. They rallied for his return, joining search parties, volunteering, and spreading Timothy's story online. Others, however, began to question Amy's actions and whether her words in the note could be trusted. They speculated that her final message was meant to mislead, and some even believed that Timothy might never be found because he was no longer alive. Then, in 2019, 8 years after Timothy's disappearance, the case took a very unexpected twist. A young man appeared claiming to be Timothy Pitson, saying he had finally escaped his captors after years of being held against his will. For a brief moment, hope flooded back. Jim and his family were overwhelmed with emotion, believing that Timothy might be finally returning home. But that hope was crushed just as quickly as it appeared, as DNA tests revealed that the young man was not Timothy. He was in fact someone else entirely, a random, troubled person looking for a way out of their own life. Despite the disappointment, Timothy's case remains active. Law enforcement has refused to close it, and his family holds on to the hope that he's still out there. Timothy's disappearance has become one of America's most famous and confusing mysteries. Some still theorize that Amy may have had help, that maybe someone else was involved in Timothy's disappearance, which could help to explain the times that Amy was alone checking into the hotels. The idea is based partly on her note, where she mentioned Timothy being with people who would care for him, though to this day there's no evidence supporting this theory. But the
You
idea
never
that
know.
Timothy might still be out there, hidden with someone who
Yeah.
knows the truth, keeps the mystery alive.
What's
You can't
wrong
give
with
up
you?
hope. As soon as you give up hope, then what should I do? What, declare
You
him
should,
dead? He's
first of
probably in
all,
the
you
middle
should
of
go
nowhere,
first when he
being
disappeared.
homeschooled,
Go check the
someplace,
back of the
just
hotel.
away from
And he probably
media,
found
TVs,
dug up something.
new technology.
Well, who knows?
It was still dark in Midlothian, Texas on the morning of
I'm
the
gonna say that, huh?
18th of
My
April
ass.
2016.
My ass.
45-year-old Terry Missy Bevers, a fitness instructor and mother of 3. This was a normal time to be up and ready. She was dedicated to her fitness classes, regularly teaching early morning sessions. She had a class scheduled at Creekside Church of Christ that day, and she was known for showing up early to set everything up. Around 4:20 a.m., Missy entered the church, her headlights briefly illuminating the parking lot before going dark. With her workout equipment and supplies in hand, she made her way inside, likely unaware of the danger that awaited her. What she didn't know was that someone had already broken in. Hours before Missy arrived, Creekside Church had been empty, but by 3:50 a.m., a figure had appeared inside, roaming the halls in a way that would later raise unsettling questions. Security cameras captured the footage of this person, someone whose actions seemed more bizarre than purposeful. The intruder was dressed head to toe in SWAT-style tactical gear, including a helmet, vest, and gloves, all of which concealed their identity. Obviously, this wasn't ordinary clothing, especially for someone committing a crime, and it was something that law enforcement would later struggle to explain, as they couldn't figure out if it was merely just a disguise or some sort of message. As the figure moved through the church, their actions were equally strange. Instead of heading directly to an office, a safe, or any obvious target, the person walked around, opening doors, checking rooms, and tapping on walls. Their pace was calm, almost wondering, as if they had all the time in the world, as it didn't seem like they were searching for anything specific. Instead, it felt as though they were just waiting. The security footage further showed this person pausing here and there, standing silently, before moving again. It was this slow, almost detached movement that would later haunt viewers. And in one of the stranger aspects caught on the camera was the fact that the figure seemed to even stagger slightly, as they walked very clumsily, as it looks as if they could be unfamiliar with the layout of the church, or they were in some kind of daze. At around 4:20 a.m., just as Missy entered the church, the camera footage ended. To this day, it's unclear exactly how much time passed between Missy walking into the church and her encounter with the intruder, but what is known is that Missy was soon to be found dead, her body discovered by her students who arrived for class a short time later. The scene that they would walk into was shot.
At what point does a salad become a salad? When you're at the egg roll, the Zaxby Sensation salad.
That nigga had a whole police
Shop
shoot on
Amazon
him.
last minute deals
Yeah,
now.
the word police on the back of his shit.
Things people love.
I don't want you breathing that monkey smell. Bit.
Missy had suffered multiple injuries that was believed to have been inflicted by a hammer that was left near her
How do you
body.
do it?
After
Gumbo?
her
He
death,
said,
the investigators turned to
"This is
Creekside
America."
Church's security cameras, hoping they held the clues that could identify Missy's killer. What detectives found is that the footage raised far more questions than it answered. Like, as the figure moved throughout the church, they would also periodically break certain objects and shatter glass, leading the police to believe that the person was trying to stage some sort of robbery gone wrong. Though that theory would make little sense when you consider that the robber neglected to take Missy's purse or iPad. Also, why had they chosen a church of all places? And what was the motive? If this was a robbery, it was certainly an unusual one. After the discovery of Missy's body at Creekside Church, Midlothian police faced a daunting task. Because there was just so little to go off, the detectives involved started watching the footage over and over again to find the tiniest of details, which then made them notice the killer's strange gait or walking style, as they seemed to move with a slight clumsiness, as if they were wearing shoes too big or simply had a very distinct walk. Internet detectives then started comparing the walk to those around Missy, and if you line up the videos of the SWAT-geared intruder with those of her father, they do look eerily similar. But this evidence, if you can even call it that, is extremely weak and is a symptom of the case being so mysterious and confusing. The police themselves initially thought that the intruder could be female, as the alt looked as if the person was wearing clothes too big or too heavy, though again, this theory led nowhere. As detectives continued analysing the footage, they turned to Missy's family, friends and acquaintances, hoping to uncover any motive or clue that could point them towards a suspect. They asked about Missy's relationships, any recent conflicts and her schedule, searching for anything that might explain why someone would target her. Missy's husband, Brandon, her 3 children and her close friends all cooperated fully, sharing information about Missy's life and any challenges she might have been facing. According to her loved ones, Missy was well liked, devoted to her family and passionate about her work as a fitness instructor. However, some friends mentioned that Missy had recently expressed concerns about a strange social media message she had received. These messages on LinkedIn reportedly came from an unknown male and were described as creepy and strange. The police would track down this person of interest, though it ultimately turned out to be a dead end. Detectives documented everything they had learned, yet no single piece of information pointed directly towards a clear suspect. To this day, Terry Missy Beva's case has gone completely unsolved. Alyssa Turney was a typical 17-year-old high school junior living in Phoenix, Arizona, with her father, Michael Turney, and half-sister Sarah. Like most teenagers, she had a part-time job, friends, and dreams for the future. But on the 17th of May 2001, everything changed. That was the day Alyssa vanished without a trace. The mystery of her disappearance would leave her family and community searching for answers for years to come. It was the last day of school, and Alyssa was looking forward to summer break. She and her friends had made plans to celebrate, and it seemed like a typical start to what should have been a carefree summer. But what happened that afternoon has been clouded by strange details, some coming from her father Michael himself, who was the last person to ever see her. According to Michael, he picked up Alyssa from Paradise Valley High School around lunchtime. He claimed that they went out for a bite to eat at a local restaurant, and then, once they returned home, they had a heated argument. Michael would later tell the police that Alyssa stormed off, shouting that she was leaving and heading to California to live with her biological aunt. To back this story, Michael claimed he found a note from Alyssa in her room, saying basically exactly what she was saying in the argument, that she was running away. The note, written in Alyssa's handwriting, didn't sit right with Alyssa's friends and family. For one, none of her belongings, like her phone or purse, were missing. If Alyssa truly intended to run away, why would she leave behind everything she'd need? And why didn't she tell any of her close friends about her plans? Initially, authorities treated Alyssa as a runaway, believing that she might have truly gone to California or was still somewhere nearby in the Phoenix area. However, doubts started to arise when the $1,800 in her bank account was left completely untouched, and she failed to contact any of her friends and family. As police started to investigate further, they discovered something odd. Michael had been tracking Alyssa's movements in ways that went beyond what many see as protective. In fact, he seemed to have an unusual level of control over her life. At her job, Alyssa's co-workers noticed Michael would occasionally appear unannounced, sometimes with a video camera. In one instance, he secretly recorded his daughter's interactions with customers, co-workers, and friends, claiming it was to ensure her safety, but there was no clear reason why he would have to monitor her like this. These recordings weren't limited to her workplace either. Michael had even installed surveillance devices around their home, and one of the most disturbing details was the discovery of hidden recording devices in the family's living room. It's unknown how often Michael reviewed these recordings, but it was clear he had an intense need to keep tabs on Alyssa's actions and conversations. This kind of behavior extended into nearly every aspect of Alyssa's life. Michael kept strict control over her social life, reportedly screening her phone calls and limiting her time with friends. Alyssa's friends recalled that Michael seemed overly protective and suspicious, making her feel uncomfortable and trapped. They reported that Alyssa felt she couldn't do anything without her father knowing, and over time, she grew increasingly resentful of his intense surveillance. For any teenager, this level of control would have felt suffocating, though it gets much more worrying when the police were taking statements from those who knew Alyssa to try and find any leads revolving her disappearance. One of her close friends, her boyfriend, and her stepbrother all independently shared stories that they had heard from Alyssa, all all involving Michael attempting to illegally and inappropriately touch his daughter. In one instance, Alyssa's stepbrother said that during a car ride, Michael scooted closer to Alyssa and then tried to touch her in ways that would certainly get him arrested if anyone had reported him. Speaking of which, Michael himself once called Child Protective Services to warn them that if Alyssa was to ever call them to accuse him of touching her strangely, that she's a liar, a very normal thing for a loving father to do. Then somehow the strangeness continues. Michael was fixated on a very particular incident involving Alyssa. He frequently brought up the claim that years prior, Alyssa had been by a teacher. Michael often told people he believed this incident deeply affected her, yet there was no concrete evidence of it ever happening. Interestingly, Michael's account of the incident would often shift, making it hard for investigators to verify. Alyssa's close friends noted that she had never mentioned the supposed assault, and many doubted it ever happened. Michael, however, used this story as a justification for his extreme protectiveness, insisting that he was simply trying to shield Alyssa from further harm. Then there was the matter of Alyssa's aunt. When the police followed up, they learned that Alyssa's aunt in California hadn't heard from her, wasn't expecting her to come. This detail obviously threw more doubt on Michael's story. If Alyssa had indeed intended to run away, why hadn't she contacted the aunt that she was supposedly going to stay with? To the police, Alyssa's disappearance started looking less like a runaway case and more like a mystery. But without clear evidence of any sort of crime taking place, the case stalled. One of the most unsettling details about Alyssa's case is that her disappearance
she's somewhere under the house, my boy. I'm telling you, somewhere under the house.
Normally, parents of missing children are frantic, calling every friend and visiting every place they can think of to find their child. But Michael didn't seem to do any of that. Instead, he waited 5 days after Alyssa vanished to report her missing. For many, this delayed response obviously raised suspicion. When asked why he waited, Michael claimed that he thought Alyssa would return home when she had cooled off, insisting that she was just a rebellious teen who had run away in the heat of the moment. After years of frustration, doubt, and silence, one voice would rise above the uncertainty surrounding Alyssa Turney's disappearance. Her younger sister, Sarah. Driven by a desire to know what really happened, Sarah Turney became the leading force behind Alyssa's case, refusing to let her sister's story fade. For years, she struggled to understand what had happened and to reconcile the loss of her sister with the vague and suspicious stories told by her stepdad, Michael. As Sarah grew older, her curiosity deepened. She began questioning the details surrounding Alyssa's disappearance and eventually recognized the inconsistencies in the story that Michael had shared with her over the years. While police had long classified Alyssa's case as a runaway situation, Sarah began to suspect that it was something far more sinister. At first, Sarah tried addressing her concerns within her family. She asked Michael directly about what had happened and pushed for answers. Michael insisted that Alyssa had simply left, that she had run away and wanted nothing to do with them anymore. Yet Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to the story and that her stepdad might be hiding something crucial. Sarah also reached out to law enforcement, hoping they could reopen the case, but with no new evidence and Alyssa's status officially labelled as a runaway, the police weren't able to provide much assistance. Despite these roadblocks, Sarah continued her quest, refusing to accept that her sister's case would remain unsolved. Frustrated by the lack of progress, Sarah took matters into her own hands and turned to social media. She started sharing Alyssa's story online, using every platform available to spread awareness and gain support. Over time, her posts began to capture attention and Sarah's online presence grew, but it wasn't until she joined TikTok that her fight for justice truly gained momentum. On TikTok, Sarah adopted a very direct and honest approach. She very openly talked about her suspicions of Michael, as well as her struggle to keep the case alive. Sarah wasn't afraid in the slightest to speak out against her own stepdad, publicly declaring that she believed he was responsible for Alyssa's disappearance. Her boldness was both risky and shocking, but it was effective on TikTok as viewers admired her courage to speak out, even when it meant accusing a family member. After years of uncertainty and years of advocacy from Sarah, the investigation into Alyssa's disappearance took a significant turn. In August 2020, nearly 2 decades after Alyssa was last seen, police arrested her stepfather, Michael Turney, charging him with second-degree murder. Investigators pieced together patterns of Michael's controlling behavior, leading to the decision to formally reopen the case and charge him. The second-degree murder charge against Michael Turney indicated that the authorities believed he had killed Alyssa without premeditation. However, the lack of any direct physical evidence linking Michael to Alyssa's disappearance posed a significant challenge for the prosecution. Despite these hurdles, Sarah and her supporters remained hopeful that the circumstantial evidence and Michael's own actions would lead to a conviction. In July 2023, Michael Turney's trial commenced. After 6 days of testimony, the defense filed a motion for an acquittal, arguing that the prosecution had not presented substantial evidence to support a conviction. The judge agreed, citing the absence of physical evidence proving Alyssa's death or Michael's involvement, and acquitted Michael of all charges. He was released from custody on July 18th, 2023. Following his release, Michael Turney took legal action against local officials. In January of 2024, he filed a lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department, as Michael alleged he was mistreated during his time in custody, claiming he was denied adequate health care and meals, and asserted he was wrongfully imprisoned. As of today, the case of Alyssa Turney has gone completely cold.
If Alyssa's out there, any message for her?
Same message I've always tried to give it.
Which is,
I love her.
you want her to come home.
Obviously so.
Nigga, you buried her in the
The
backyard,
holiday
boy.
of a lifetime, a Caribbean cruise, warm beaches,
She
and
is
the
in the
endless
backyard.
blue of the open
Somewhere
sea. Amy
under
Lynn
that house.
Bradley, a 23-year-old
I'm surprised
recent
they didn't
college
start digging
graduate
the
from
backyard
Virginia,
up. My
was
boy, you
thrilled
found some
about the
bones.
trip.
I
Traveling with
guarantee
her
it.
family, she boarded the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas on March 21st, 1998. Amy was excited, but also a little bit nervous. Friends and family said she wasn't exactly the cruise type. Amy was athletic, outgoing, and independent, but she had a fear of open water, which made the cruise ship a bit of a leap outside her comfort zone. The night of March 23rd should have been just like any other night on the cruise ship. The family enjoyed dinner, and Amy later went to a nightclub on the ship with her brother Brad. The siblings had a fun night, dancing and chatting with the other passengers. And in a video taken that night, Amy looked happy and carefree. Around 3:30 a.m., Brad
I'm
left the
solving
club to
cases
go
left
to
and
bed,
right, boy.
and Amy told him she'd be
Shit,
right
my
behind her.
intuition
This
says
was
she
the
in the
last
backyard
confirmed sighting of
near the
Amy by
house.
her family. Early next morning, things took a shocking turn. Around 5:30 a.m., Amy's
The baby
father,
fucking
Ron
in the
Bradley,
bones.
woke up in their shared cabin. He noticed that Amy wasn't in her bed, which immediately set off the alarms in his head. It was strange for Amy to be up that early, especially since they'd been out late the night before. Ron initially assumed she might have gone up to the deck to watch the sunrise, and he figured she'd be back soon. But as the minutes passed and Amy didn't return, Ron's concern grew. He searched around the ship looking for any sign of his daughter, as he checked the common areas, the decks, and even went to the ship's dining area, but there was no trace of Amy. Feeling increasingly desperate, he woke up the rest of the family. They searched for her together, hoping to find her asleep somewhere else or chatting with a friend, but Amy was nowhere to be found. By 6 a.m., the family reported Amy's disappearance to the ship's crew. At first, the crew didn't seem as worried as the Bradleys were. They suggested that maybe Amy had gone for a swim, fallen asleep somewhere, or even gone ashore on her own during an early port stop. However, Amy's family knew she wouldn't have just wandered off without telling them. They insisted that something was wrong and pushed for a more thorough search of the ship. The search of the Rhapsody of the Seas was extensive, but it wasn't fast. Crew members scanned every deck, every room, every public area for any sign of Amy. Still, nothing turned up. By midday, the captain made an official announcement alerting all passengers to Amy's disappearance and asking for any information. But despite everyone's efforts, it was as if she had just vanished into thin air. Amy's family then tried to convince the captain to stop the boat until Amy had been found, as if the worst case scenario had happened and she had been kidnapped. She could would then be smuggled off the ship when they'd eventually reach the port. The captain ignored their pleas and continued to drive the boat, allowing everyone off the ship. For the Bradley family, the idea that Amy might have gone overboard was unbearable. She was a strong swimmer and wouldn't have been careless around the water. Plus, Amy had left behind her shoes and her identification in her cabin, which raised even more questions. Could she have met someone who persuaded her to leave her cabin, or had she encountered someone with darker intentions? Well, Amy's family, desperate for answers, recalled several strange interactions she had with crew members during the trip. A few days before she vanished, Amy mentioned feeling uncomfortable around some of the crew. According to her family, she felt watched. One particular crew member had approached her several times, showing an unusual amount of interest in her. He reportedly invited her to go dancing at the club off the ship, which she turned down. Then, her family noticed something very worrying. On board the ship, there was an area where photos of passengers were displayed, pictures taken by the ship's photographers, available for families to view and buy. But something was wrong. All the photos featuring Amy had vanished. Her family couldn't help but wonder, had someone intentionally removed her pictures? If so, who would do such a thing, and why? And as time passed, some people have claimed to have seen Amy, fueling the theories that she might still be alive. Several witnesses came forward saying that they had seen a woman matching Amy's description in the Caribbean. These sightings included accounts from a sailor and tourists who saw a woman resembling Amy with men who seemed to control her. In one case, a Canadian tourist reported seeing a woman in a brothel in Barbados. The woman allegedly begged for help, saying she was in fact Amy and was not allowed to leave. These sightings gave Amy's family hope, but all of them led to dead ends when followed up by authorities. No concrete evidence was found, and the woman in the sightings was never confirmed to be Amy. The descriptions were often vague, and some sightings happened in chaotic settings. Still, for the Bradleys, each new sighting brought a glimmer of hope, which is also connected to perhaps the most disturbing theory of all, being that Amy had been abducted and sold into human trafficking. The idea was bolstered years later when a chilling piece of evidence emerged as a photo of a woman resembling Amy was found on an adult website. The woman in the photo had a similar tattoo to Amy, and her appearance is undeniably similar considering that she would be several years older. Amy's parents saw the photo and were convinced it was her. They believed the image was proof that Amy was alive, trapped in a terrifying situation from which she couldn't escape. Investigators found evidence of human trafficking rings operating within the Caribbean, and a young woman like Amy, traveling alone at night on the ship, could have been a target. Her family began to suspect that if someone had lured her, they might have forced her off the ship in one of the island ports and into a dark underground network. Either way, until this day, Amy Lynn Bradley is still missing 26 years later. Kenny Beach was no ordinary hiker. Kenny was the kind of person who thrived on adventure. He'd been hiking for years, tackling some of the hardest trails in the southwest United States. Friends described him as fearless and intensely curious, which perhaps is what eventually led to his unfortunate end. He documented one of his hikes on YouTube, where he'd gained a small viewer base and talked about some of his findings in the endless stretches of the Mojave Desert. There were abandoned mines, strange caves, and even government training grounds all around the place. Kenny's viewers became captivated by his discoveries, eagerly awaiting another upload, and for Kenny, their excitement seemed to fuel his own. Despite the dangers, Kenny found a sense of freedom in these remote places, but he also knew the risks. A simple slip on a rock, a broken bone, or getting lost without cell reception could mean life or death. Yet Kenny believed the rewards were worth the risk. Kenny once shared that he had a habit of exploring alone, even when people warned him against it. Hiking alone in a desert like the Mojave was not something that most would consider, but Kenny saw it differently. He believed that hiking alone sharpened his senses and it forced him to be more aware of his surroundings. Without the distractions of company, he could listen to the desert and focus on the details he might otherwise overlook. His viewers, and also he probably knew, that each time he went out there alone, he was taking a chance. But it was a chance he seemed willing to take again and again. But there was one discovery that would change everything. It wasn't just another rocky canyon or long-abandoned mine. It was something different.
And I'm looking for a cave that I found, and I didn't have a sidearm when I was here before. And something about that cave just spooked me. Out of all the caves I've ever gone in, this one just made my body vibrate. The closer I got to it, the crazier my body felt, and I was like, alright, I'm not gonna go in there right now, but I'm coming back someday. So, hopefully I'll find it. It's shaped like a big M. It's a big cave that looks just like a gigantic M, and it's about as tall as I am, and kind of narrow, and it's stuck on the side of a mountain. So I hope I can find it again.
Sometimes
stays like hot commodities, sands, extra sugar, trivia, taste making.
Send and receive your thanks.
I will burn the ground. I will burn the
Now
ground.
on Uber.
Whiteout survived. Play
Feels like a dream, feels like magic. Now I believe I can have
Sometimes I just want to keep it going.
wishes came true. Shop like a billionaire. Shop like a billionaire. Download the Temu app and shop like a billionaire.
His viewers began to speculate about what might have caused such a strange reaction. Some thought it was natural, maybe an odd geological feature, or maybe a minor earthquake. And obviously others immediately believed there was something more mysterious at play, like secret military experiments or something supernatural. Kenny read through all the comments, and it was clear that the mystery of the M-shaped cave had captured the minds of many. People were sending him messages, pushing him to return to the desert and explore the cave. It wasn't like him just to back down from a challenge, and the encouragement from his viewers made it harder for him to ignore the mystery. But he was also cautious. He knew that returning to such a remote location was risky, especially with the strange sensation he had felt. Was it really worth the danger? Despite the fear of the unknown, Kenny decided he couldn't let this mystery go. He wanted answers just as much as his audience did, maybe even more. And soon, he announced his plans to go back, determined to find out, once and for all, what was inside that cave. Kenny prepared carefully for this trip, aware of the dangers that awaited him in the desert. Even for an experienced hiker like him, the Mojave held countless risks. This wasn't just a quick day hike. The remote location of the cave meant that he'd have to navigate miles of rugged terrain with limited supplies and no phone reception. In case anything went wrong, Kenny let his girlfriend and a few close friends know where he'd be heading. This way they'd have an idea of his location if he didn't come back. Days passed, and no one heard from Kenny. At first, his friends and family assumed he was still exploring, caught up in the thrill of adventure. But as more time went by, their worry grew. Kenny's girlfriend reported him missing, and a search operation was launched as teams of rescue workers scoured the Mojave Desert, covering every trail and checking every canyon. They looked for signs of his presence, hoping to find any clue about where he might have gone. During the search, they discovered Kenny's phone lying on the ground near an abandoned mine shaft. This was miles from any marked trail and deep within the desert. The phone had no interesting messages, no final recordings, no indication of what might have happened to it. It was as if he had left it on purpose or had dropped it by accident before going further into the wilderness. I mean, why would he leave it behind? Despite extensive search efforts, no other trace of Kenny was ever found. The team searched for weeks, covering the surrounding area and examining any possible routes he might have taken. But the desert is vast and its rocky, uneven terrain makes it difficult to find someone, especially in the remote areas where Kenny was known to explore. With no further evidence and no sign of Kenny, the search was eventually called off, leaving his friends, family, and YouTube viewers with more questions than answers. The M-shaped cave quickly became the focal point of every theory as to what might have happened, as the cave itself was never located either. People have found caves that could be the M-shaped one, but nothing solid, and no one has ever experienced the same intense vibrations Kenny did. The mystery surrounding Kenny has built up a sort of community of amateur investigators and internet detectives. One of their many, many theories involves Kenny's sister Debbie Veach. Now Debbie runs a little Reiki studio and shop, and in 2018 it was burgled. A man, unidentified, broke in through a glass window with a crowbar, stealing an iPad and other small items. Many people who like investigating the mystery of Kenny are absolutely convinced that this was him based off of the security footage. Debbie has never even implied it's Kenny, but still, people are clearly desperate to find out what happened to him. To this day, Kenny's case remains unsolved. Relisha Rudd was only 8 years old when she disappeared from Washington, D.C., leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unsettling mysteries behind. Born on October 29th, 2005, Relisha lived a far from easy life. Relisha's family struggled financially, and she spent most of her early years moving between unstable housing situations. Relisha and her family eventually found a place to stay at a shelter known as the General Family Shelter. While it provided a roof over their heads, it was a difficult environment for any child. The shelter housed hundreds of families and individuals experiencing homelessness, and the facility was crowded and sometimes chaotic. For Relisha, the shelter was both her home and her playground, though it was far from the safe, nurturing environment that every child deserves. Despite these hardships, Relisha's teachers and people who knew her described her as friendly and full of curiosity. They noted how she loved school and seemed to be happy there, finding some sense of stability and normalcy in the classroom. Her teacher noticed though that her attendance was irregular. Days turned into weeks, and when Relisha stopped coming to school altogether, people started to worry. At first, no one knew what to think. Relisha's absence was unusual, but not completely shocking. Living in the shelter meant that her life was unpredictable, and unfortunately, it wasn't uncommon for children in similar situations to miss days of school. School officials made phone calls and reached out to her family when her mother, Shamika Young, was contacted. She claimed that Relisha was in the care of a doctor who was being treated for a health issue. She even provided the name of the doctor, Dr. Tatum. Relieved, the school trusted Shamika's explanation and didn't press her any further. They had no reason to doubt her words, but this decision would soon reveal its terrifying consequences. It was the 1st of March 2014 when the authorities were finally contacted. School officials decided to look into Relisha's absence once more and discovered something that made them uneasy. The Dr. Tatum that Relisha's mother had referred to wasn't a doctor at all. He was Khalil Tatum, a janitor at the shelter where Relisha's family lived. The unexpected twist raised alarm bells for everyone involved. Though Khalil wasn't just a stranger to Relisha's family, he was someone who had developed a close, almost unsettling relationship with her. Shelter staff and other families noticed how Tatum spent time with Relisha, buying her gifts, taking her on outings, and providing her with things that perhaps her family couldn't afford. People close to the family obviously saw these gestures as unusual, but no one could have guessed what would come next. Tatum had an extensive criminal history that included burglary and larceny. He was hired despite concerns raised by some about the shelter's lack of proper background checks. The shelter's staffing shortage and high demand for support made it difficult to screen employees thoroughly. Tatum's role brought him into frequent contact with Relisha and her family, and he gradually became a trusted figure in their lives. Relisha's mother, Shamika, accepted these gestures, even allowing Relisha to spend unsupervised time with him. Once police began investigating, they uncovered disturbing details about Tatum's behavior. Surveillance footage later revealed that Tatum had taken Relisha to a Holiday Inn Express in northeast Washington on March 1st, making it the last known sighting of the young girl. Tatum's actions following that day became even more suspicious. He was spotted purchasing a shovel, lime, a chemical that can be used to stop the smell of a rotting corpse, as well as large trash bags, items that suggested he might have intended to cover up a crime. Then, something very unexpected happened. As the investigation intensified, authorities discovered that Khalil Tatum's wife, Andrea, was found dead in a hotel room from a gunshot wound. This development only deepened the urgency of the search for Relisha, and it became clear that Dr. Tatum was even more dangerous than the police thought. Law enforcement began a nationwide search for Tatum. Meanwhile, the behavior of Relisha's mother, Shamika, was starting to make less and less sense. When the school first notified Shamika that Relisha wasn't attending anymore, she Shamika did not immediately notify the police or the shelter staff, a delay that severely impacted the investigation, and Shamika's general response was slow and at times evasive. When asked by the police and child welfare authorities about her daughter's last known whereabouts, she provided limited information, and her answers often lacked urgency. It could be possible that Shamika might have feared getting into trouble herself, as she was aware of Tatum's involvement with her daughter and the potential legal implications of neglect. Authorities investigating the case became increasingly frustrated with Shamika's lack of cooperation. Although she eventually acknowledged that Tatum had been taking care of Relisha, she continued to give inconsistent statements about why she allowed her daughter to spend so much time with him. Her explanations were often contradictory, shifting between trusting Tatum as a caring figure and being unaware of the danger her daughter faced. Shamika's behavior either suggested a stupidly high level of trust in a stranger or a complete failure to recognize the risks associated with allowing her daughter to be in Tatum's care. And on April 1st, 2014, likely the worst case scenario had happened. Khalil Tatum was found to have taken his own life in a shed in Kenilworth Park, which was an area that had already been searched for Relisha. Tatum was the last person seen with Relisha, so when he died, he took many of the answers with him. His death left police scrambling for leads, but despite searches and tips, now they weren't even certain if Relisha was alive, alone, or had been given to someone else. Purely speculating, I think it's possible that Tatum may have had a less than legal relationship with Relisha and may have been exploiting her with Shamika's permission. Perhaps Tatum's wife Andrea found out, and that was the motive behind her unfortunate death, though the true motive behind Relisha Rudd's disappearance will likely never be known. And that concludes today's video. If you want more disturbing content, you can check out this video that YouTube thinks you enjoy. Thanks for watching.
What the fuck? Sometimes I want to do this shit.
How do I move to the right? Oh, yeah.
Alright, you go murder. I'm cleaning out these fucking grinders. And I'm still crashing cases. Crashing cases left and right. Yeah, she been sex traffic. Yeah, and Caribbeans. Yeah. Oh, cool.
In a world of uncertainty, unsolved mysteries often haunt us for years. From long-lost siblings to missing persons, there are some cases that remain eerie and unresolved, with no closure in sight. In 2023, several cold cases were miraculously solved by dedicated police and private investigators, providing much-needed resolution to heartbroken families. Join us as we take you through 2023's most bizarre, mysterious, and horrifying stories of cold cases that eventually found some form of closure. The case of Amor Wiggins. On January 28, 2012, in Opelika, Alabama, a local stumbled upon a human skull near the Brookhaven Trailer Park on Hurst Street. After further inspection of the area, police officers discovered that there were more skeletal remains scattered about. Furthermore, a pink, long-sleeved shirt with heart-shaped buttons was located just off the creek bank. Police could not determine if this garment belonged to the victim. Detectives concluded that the skull likely belonged to a young African-American girl between 4 and 7 years old. A deformity in her left eye indicated she may have been abused, while her bones revealed signs of malnourishment and recalled that the girl had disheveled hair, was not very hygienic, and seemed reclusive or unable to communicate with other kids. The little girl was between 4 and 5 years old at the time. The teacher could not recall her name, and the church at which she attended had failed to register any of its children, leaving no traceable records. Working with what they've got, police used advanced imaging software to enhance the old photo as much as possible, hoping that a member of the public would help them identify the Opelika Jane Doe. Then, in 2017, experts from the University of South Florida's Institute for Forensic Anthropology performed a series of isotope tests on her bones and came to the conclusion that she probably lived in the southeastern parts of the United States. In January 2022, the help of Othram Laboratories was employed by the Opelika Police Department. Othram is an advanced forensic sequencing lab built to apply the power of modern parallel sequencing to forensic evidence. Her remains were sent to Othram's laboratory. A DNA extract from these remains was then synthesized, which facilitated the creation of a more comprehensive geological profile. Taking matters further, the Opelika Police Department sought out the help of Barbara Ray Ventor, a renowned geneticist who is mostly known for aiding police investigations with identifying the Golden State Killer to supply investigative leads. In January 2023, Othram was finally able to uncover the identity of the Opelika Jane Doe. She was a little girl by the name of Amor Javale Wiggins. Amor's father was known as Lamar Vickerstaff, a 50-year-old native of Opelika. Lamar was serving in the U.S. Navy. Prior to the discovery's announcements, detectives journeyed to the Mayport Naval Station in Jacksonville, where Lamar was stationed at the time, and confronted him about his daughter's passing. Lamar refused to cooperate. When questioned about the girl's remains, Ruth, Lamar's wife, to whom he'd been married since May 2006, informed detectives that she had no idea who she was or who her real mother might have been. It was later discovered that Amor's real mother was Sherry Wiggins, who hailed from Maryland. Sherry met Lamar Vickerstaff when she was only 19. Lamar was 35 and serving in the Navy at the time. The two lived in the same apartment complex. Soon after, they decided to take the next step and move in together when Sherry discovered her pregnancy. Despite this, Lamar's family was deeply angered by the fact that their son had a child out of wedlock, so the couple agreed to split up after coming to the realization that getting married wouldn't be feasible. At the age of 37, Sherry told detectives that she was indeed Amor's biological mother. She confirmed that Lamar and Ruth had received full legal custody over Amor back in 2009, that Sherry was paying child support to Lamar since then, and that her visitation rights were suspended at the time of Amor's death. Lamar and Ruth were apprehended in Jacksonville, Florida on January 17, 2023. They are currently being detained at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and are both charged with failure to report a missing child. In addition to these charges, Lamar is also facing a felony murder charge. Sherry, Amor's real mother, spoke out publicly, expressing her feelings on the community's reaction to her daughter's case. She stated that although some have been kind and understanding of her situation, many were quick to pass judgment on her without any knowledge of what truly happened. Despite this, Sherry said the only thing she was worried about was getting justice for Amor. She extended an immense amount of gratitude towards the Opelika Police Department, never gave up on finding her missing child. The case of Deanna Denise Howland.
Damn.
On the spring day of May 2004, 35-year-old Deanna Denise Howland vanished without a trace. Deanna hailed from Alton, Illinois. She was a mother of 4, yet most of her children never knew her. Deanna's life leading up to her mysterious vanishing was troubled, to say the least. For years, she endured a drug addiction that caused her lifestyle to be unsettled and unpredictable. Nevertheless, one of her daughters noticed something was amiss when Deanna neglected to appear for a school play had promised her to attend in May 2004. Then, on a fateful day in June 2004, maintenance workers at the rest stop off Interstate 70 discovered a human body which had been discarded down a grassy incline. The body belonged to a woman, yet some parts of her were missing. All she had on was a black bra. The lack of decomposition suggested that her death had likely been recent. Moreover, a sharp blade was found in a nearby sewer, having been discarded at the scene of the crime. Investigators tried identifying the body using what little evidence they had available to them, such as a C-section scar, but they were ultimately unsuccessful. As for who was responsible for the murder, there was only one clue. Witnesses reported that they saw a white utility van parked in the vicinity of the crime scene 24 hours prior to the discovery of the torso. With no fresh leads to go by, and with no way of figuring out the woman's identity at the time, her case went cold. Then, 12 years later, in 2016, advanced DNA testing revealed that the mysterious Jane Doe was, in fact, Deanna Howlett. Subsequently, using the same technology, police were also able to discover the identity of her murderer by testing the knife which was left at the scene of the crime. It was a man by the name of Mike Clardy. Mike was apprehended in Maryland Heights at the residence he shared with his spouse. It turns out, following Deanna's murder, Mike had had a car accident that rendered him blind. Mike Clardy confessed to murdering Deanna in his home and moving her body to where it was eventually found. He mentioned that he met Deanna while she was working on the street and that his reasons for killing her in such a horrific manner were all because of a disagreement. If found guilty, he is facing up to 40 years in prison for his crime.
Damn. He deserves. Kill the nigga. Put them in the next chair. They're gonna kill somebody over a disagreement. He deserves it. How you gonna kill somebody over a disagreement? Don't make sense to me. My boy.
Santa, let's take something before you go.
Before I kill somebody. Hey, I'm walking away. I'm walking away.
The case of Noelle Renee Trice and Brian Keith Lash. It was the morning hours of August 11, 2017, when someone stumbled upon the lifeless bodies of Noelle Renee Trice and Brian Keith Lashley in their Fort Wayne, Indiana home. Noelle was born on June 28, 1991. Brian, on the other hand, was born on the 7th of July in 1987. They were 25 and 29 years old, respectively. Officers immediately responded to the scene and found blood splattered throughout the residence. Investigators were able to determine that a party had taken place at the couple's home earlier that night after questioning family members and guests who attended. Police began analyzing the scene of the crime. Law enforcement personnel carefully examined Noelle's phone, discovered in the hallway for any fingerprints. Unsurprisingly, Noelle's fingerprints were found all over the phone. But surprisingly, another unknown fingerprint was also discovered. Detectives worked tirelessly to find a match for the mysterious fingerprint. Initially, they suspected it may have belonged to Brian, but after running through their database, they soon discovered that the fingerprint belonged to Dustin Neal, an old acquaintance of the couple. When questioned, Dustin revealed that he had known Noelle for about 20 years, that he had gone straight to his mother's house right after the party, and, perhaps most intriguing of all, that he was aware of the couple's possession of 3 pounds of marijuana, which, according to Dustin himself, was worth a lot of money. With no evidence against him, Dustin was allowed to go home, and it seemed as though Noelle and Brian's murderer never been found. But then, a person was tracked down who had spoken to Dustin around the time of the murders, unraveling an even bigger mystery. This individual revealed that Dustin contacted him on 10th of June, 2017. Dustin sounded on edge and claimed he had a large quantity of marijuana up for sale. In July July 2022, another witness alerted police that Dustin Neal's half-brother had told him his brother was responsible for what happened to Noelle and Brian. Investigating further, authorities spoke with the half-brother in October of that same year, who confessed to hearing Dustin bragging about killing both Noelle and Brian. In October of 2022, yet another witness came forward, this time claiming that Dustin had told them that he was responsible for the deaths of Noelle, Brian, and 5 other people. During that same month, police analyzed Dustin's cell phone, and they discovered that his cell phone signals would have placed him at the scene of the crime between 6:20 a.m. and 7:04 a.m. With so much evidence now in the police possession, the truth was finally revealed. In an ill-conceived attempt to steal some marijuana, Neal entered the couple's home through a window, believing nobody was there. Unfortunately, he was then spotted by Brian. Unsure what to do, Neal lunged at Brian with the knife and murdered him. He then went on to do the same thing to Noelle. On January 1st of 2023, Fort Wayne Police Department and the Allen County Sheriff's Department charged and arrested 35-year-old Neal in Wells County. Dustin will soon be extradited to Allen County, where he will be charged with the murder of Noelle Renee Trice and Brian Keith Lashley. After nearly 6 years since this crime was committed, justice has finally been served. The case of Daisy Mae Tallman. In 2008, an unidentified female's skeletal remains were discovered west of White Swan. The Yakima Coroner's Office explored all leads available to try and identify her, but had no luck with traditional DNA testing, as the bones did not provide an accurate DNA profile. With every lead run dry and no DNA results in hand, this case faded into obscurity. Then, in 2022, the Yakima County Coroner's Office and Othman joined forces to utilize advanced DNA testing with the aim of identifying this unknown woman. The skeletal remains were sent to Othman, where scientists were able to finally obtain a usable extract from them. Subsequently, the lab employed forensic-grade genome sequencing to construct a complete DNA profile. The Yakima County Coroner's Office conducted an investigation and provided a familiar reference DNA sample. Othman relied on state-of-the-art familiar testing technology to confirm the supposed connection between the reference sample and the unknown female's genetic material. After a thorough investigation, it was confirmed that the unidentified female was Daisy Mae Tallman, otherwise known as Daisy Mae Heath. She was born on 10th of January, 1958. Described by those who were fortunate enough to know her, Daisy was a lively and courageous young girl with an introverted personality. She treasured her kin and the old-fashioned lifestyle, never shying away from lending a hand whenever needed. Her missing persons report revealed that she had been residing with relatives in the Yakima Indian Reservation when she went missing. Later, her backpack and keys were discovered at a secluded locale called Soda Springs within the reservation's territory. Daisy disappeared during the last days of August 1987 and was not reported missing by her family until late October. The reason her family waited 2 full months before reporting her missing was that she had a habit of disappearing for days, sometimes even weeks at a time. Daisy was 29 years old at the time of her death. The exact circumstances of her passing remain unknown. The case of Wilhelmina Vilkins.
Who?
81-year-old Wilhelmina Violet Vilkins was a resident of East Greenbush, New York. She loved life and spent the years following her retirement tending to her garden and doing volunteer work. Violet lived in East Greenbush for 60 years, but grew up in the neighboring town of Rensselaer alongside 9 other siblings. She was never married and lived alone. On the 19th of August 1994, Violet's brother and niece arrived at her apartment blissfully unaware of what they were about to witness. Though her car, a 1989 Plymouth Reliant, was home, they were met with a grisly sight. It was their beloved sibling, not full of vibrancy as usual, but instead lying lifelessly on her apartment floor. An autopsy later revealed that Violet had been assaulted 2 days prior to the discovery of her body. The cause of death was determined to be trauma to the head. Law enforcement officers theorized that Violet's assailant likely confronted her during a robbery, and this hypothesis became more readily apparent after it was discovered that her car had been stolen, only to be returned on the very same day, which explains the unusual way it was parked when her brother and sister saw it. 3 years later, some of Violet's possessions were also discovered near the Nassau-Shodak Cemetery in the village of Nassau, 10 miles southeast of her apartment complex. In spite of the extensive number of leads pursued, investigators failed to pin down a likely suspect. Violet's case went cold as a result. In 2019, 25 years after the original incident occurred, investigators received a tip from a woman who said that her boyfriend had confessed to robbing an elderly woman before hitting her and leaving her to die. That poor old woman. I robbed her, I hit her, and I just left her there. The boyfriend's name was Jeremiah James Gouvet. He was 18 at the time the crime took place. Gouvet's name was included in police documents as having been questioned regarding the murder, but was subsequently ruled out as a potential suspect. Upon graduating from high school, Gouvet moved to Red Hook, New York, where he then enlisted in the U.S. Air Force and was assigned at Patrick Air Force Base near Cape Canaveral. After being discharged from the military, he returned home to Red Hook and eventually settled in Rosendale. Gouvet was 43 at the time and had found a job working as a bus driver for elderly seniors. When law enforcement officers arrived at Gouvet's home on October 1st, 2019, and questioned him about Violet's murder, he instantly became defensive and grew visibly agitated. Furthermore, he refused to talk to anyone without an attorney present. At the same time, police also questioned Gouvet's family members, acquaintances, and colleagues. The next day, however, Gouvet was found dead. He had taken his own life. Just before his untimely death, it was reported he contacted a family member stating that he didn't want to go to jail. Gouvet sounded terrified and distressed throughout the ominous phone call. Investigators then retrieved fingerprints and DNA from Gouvet for use as proof in the investigation. A comparison between Gouvet's fingerprint and another, previously unidentified fingerprint found on a wooden corner of a coffee table at the scene of the crime revealed what investigators were already suspecting. The fingerprints were one and the same.
Damn.
On the 19th of January, 2023, the East Greenbush Police Department convened a press conference to announce that Jeremiah James Gouvet was the man responsible for the taking of Wilhelmina's Wilkins' life. At the news conference, Wilhelmina's niece expressed great appreciation for law enforcement and remembered her aunt as a humble woman who lived peacefully and spread nothing but joy and kindness to all those around her.
Spectrum One for business and all the connectivity your business needs for the lowest price around.
The case of Dorothy Lynn Ricker. On October 27, 1997, the Michigan State Police received a call about a body of an unclothed woman who had washed up on shore near Fox Farm Road in Manistee County. When they arrived at the scene, they discovered that she was already deceased for some time. At the time of discovery, the only physical identifier this woman had on her was a single earring. An autopsy later revealed that her death was due to asphyxia via drowning and determined it was probably accidental. Due to the limited technology at the time, nobody could figure out with certainty who the woman was. But in September 2020, the Michigan State Police Cadillac Post and Missing Persons Coordination Unit decided to reopen the investigation due to the availability of more advanced DNA testing techniques. As a result, the woman's body was exhumed and brought to a lab for further examination. Police officials sought the help of a DNA Dope Project, a nonprofit that assists in providing closures for families and investigators by leveraging investigative genetic genealogy. In July 2021, a potential familiar association was identified through the use of this technology. The findings were then supplied by the DNA Doe Project to Michigan State Police, who conducted further investigations. After looking at all the evidence, authorities determined a potential link between the woman's remains and the Thing family who lived in Acton, Maine. Subsequently, Michigan State Police secured familiar DNA reference samples from a potential relative. Unfortunately, the bone samples taken from the woman's remains were not suitable for traditional testing due to their deteriorating state. Therefore, they were submitted to Intermountain Forensics in Salt Lake City, Utah, and with advanced next-generation sequencing, a positive identification was reached on December 2022. The remains were identified as those of Dorothy Lynn Ricker, a 26-year-old woman who had been living in Chicago before she vanished. Dorothy was last seen on October 2nd, 1997, at 12:30 p.m. when officers from the St. Francis Police Department in Wisconsin encountered her sitting on a beach near the lake and spoke with her. Officers recalled she told them that she was enjoying the lakefront and the sun. Dorothy wasn't registered as missing at the time, so officers didn't think much of it. Dorothy's car was found abandoned shortly after she was last seen. Whether Dorothy took her own life or whether there was some form of foul play remains a mystery to this day. The case of Daniel G. Garza Gonzalez. On March 13th, 1973, a shocking discovery was made on the banks of Saginaw River in Milwaukee, Michigan. A man's body had been unceremoniously cast out into the waters. Autopsy reports showed that he had sustained multiple gunshot wounds and injuries caused by blunt force trauma. It appeared someone had hit him on the back of his head before shooting and throwing away his body, leaving behind no trace. With no clues as to who the culprit could be, authorities laid the man's body in an unmarked grave, and the case went cold for almost 50 years. However, in 2020, the Michigan State Police Cold Case Team and their Missing Persons Coordination Unit reopened the case. They exhumed the body for advanced DNA testing and sent a bone sample to Australia Forensics for forensics genetic genealogy. In late 2021, with help from the nonprofit DNA Doe Project, Inc., they identified a possible familiar match. With collaboration between the Texas Rangers and the DNA Doe Project, they were able to link the remains to a family in Beeville, Texas, and obtain familiar DNA reference samples, which were sent to an FBI lab for comparison. On January 5th, 2023, it was announced that the John Doe in question had been identified as Vietnam War veteran Daniel G. Garza Gonzalez, who was only 28 years old at the time of his disappearance. Following his return to America, he had left Fort Worth, Texas, in search of work in Flint, Michigan, but never made it there or back home again. Daniel's killer remains unknown. The Michigan State Police Cold Case Team and Missing Persons Coordination Unit is still calling for anyone with information on Daniel's case to come forward. The case of Lillian DeClos.
Lillian DeClos.
89 years old, Lillian DeClos was a former teacher and nurse who lived in Broward County in 1994. She suffered from memory loss and needed assistance with day-to-day activities. Her niece, June Nicholas, took care of her. On the afternoon of April 29, 1994, June entered her aunt's home, only to find Lillian had been murdered.
Dang.
It appeared as though the assailant had gotten into the house through a bedroom window and ransacked the place, indicating it was likely not a targeted attack, but rather a robbery gone wrong. In an effort to gather more information, the police diligently collected various objects from the crime scene as evidence. Years later, in 2004, detectives at Broward County Sheriff's Office retested Lillian's nightgown and discovered male DNA on it. Hoping to solve the case, Broward County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit examined previous records in DNA databases, combing them for any potential leads that may have missed. In the end, they found a likely suspect, a homeless man by the name of Johnny Mac Brown. Johnny Mac Brown was a former United States Marine who once lived just down the street from Lillian. His family members shared with detectives that he had been suffering from substance abuse and PTSD for a number of years, something which eventually led up to his death in 2010. In August 2022, investigators obtained a court order to unearth Brown's remains from the South Florida National Cemetery in Palm Beach County. Tests conducted by the Broward County Sheriff's Office Crime Lab revealed that Brown's DNA was a direct match with the DNA left on Lillian's nightgown. The truth was finally revealed. Johnny Mac Brown was responsible for what happened to Lillian. Lillian's case is now solved. When June Nicholas found out who her aunt killers was, she had this to say: "I know that wherever she is, she can sleep in peace." The case of Philip Kahn. On July 24th, 2000, an unidentified male body was discovered floating in the Atlantic Ocean, 27 miles off the coast of Maine, near the Grand Manan Banks. In an effort to identify this man, the Maine Office of Chief Medical Examiner performed an autopsy and took DNA and fingerprint samples. The samples were submitted to the FBI, yet no matches were found. Despite their best efforts, no new leads were unearthed by the police, and the case went cold. In 2019, the Maine Office of Chief Medical Examiner enlisted the help of Parabon Nanolabs to evaluate the DNA and attempt forensic genealogy, hoping to uncover any potential leads. Unfortunately, their efforts yielded no tangible results. In March 2022, the Maine Office of Chief Medical Examiner held a meeting with representatives from the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services to discuss modernized technologies available through their organization. The unidentified man's fingerprints and dental records were sent for analysis in May 2022. After review by DPI Services and further examination at the FBI, it was determined.
Let's get real. It's hard to live up to that mug. Like that time you forgot the diaper bag. But with
that the remains belonged to 84-year-old Philip Kahn, who had gone missing in Las Vegas in 2000. One of Philip's family members was notified of the disturbing finding. Philip had left Las Vegas, Nevada in July 2020 and landed in New York. How his body ended up off the coast of Maine is a puzzle yet to be solved. The case of William and Ina Campbell. William and Ina Campbell were a loving, elderly couple, both in their 80s, who lived on Jackson Road, Clarksville, Tennessee. During a heavy snowstorm in 2010, the couple's mailbox was struck by an unfortunate neighbor driving on the slippery roads. The neighbor tried calling several times, but William Campbell was not answering his phone, so the neighbor tried calling Daniel Champagne. Daniel was also their neighbor, but was very close to the Campbells. In fact, the Campbells thought of him as his son, and even entrusted him with a spare set of keys to their house. Daniel attempted to reach out to the couple, yet there was no response. With no other option, he felt that he had no other recourse but to use the key he'd been given to gain entrance to their home and check if everything was okay. When he entered the house, he was greeted by an appalling sight. William and Ina Campbell lay on their beds. They had been murdered in their sleep. As they aged, the Campbells endured a few medical issues which necessitated them sleeping in separate beds. When Daniel discovered Ina, she still had her oxygen tube attached to her nose. After the shock wore out, and he slowly began grasping the reality of what he saw, Daniel looked around him and noticed that the drawers were all ripped apart and all of the kitchen cupboards were left hanging open, indicating that the place had been ransacked. What was most peculiar of all is that none of the Campbell's guns were taken. According to the Clarksville police detective Tim Anderson, guns are the number one thing that gets stolen during a robbery. Immediately, Daniel informed the police, who promptly arrived on the scene and began analyzing all the evidence. Some of the neighbors were questioned and recalled that the dogs never barked. This was strange, as the Campbell's dogs definitely would bark if a stranger walked inside the home unannounced. This led officers to surmise that it was someone who was well acquainted with the victims and their dogs who had committed the crime. What investigators found most bizarre was that no items of value were taken. Jewelry boxes remained untouched, the safe had not been tampered with, and all of the money the Campbells had lying around was still there when police arrived. All of this led officers to conclude that the person behind the crime must have had ulterior motives, that he stood to gain something more substantial than a few pieces of expensive jewelry and a few $100s. Their adopted son, William Roger Campbell, immediately became a person of interest, as he was next in line to inherit their estate if they were to pass away. Bill Campbell's estate was valued at $130,000, and Ina's estate was worth approximately $120,000. Investigators also recalled that Roger refused to cooperate with them fully and even provided several inconsistencies during questioning. Furthermore, he was declared the last known person to see his parents alive. Despite all of that, at the time, there wasn't enough evidence linking him to the scene of the crime. As time passed and leads ran thin, interest in the case slowly fizzled out. Then 11 years later, on June 21st, 2021, Roger Campbell was apprehended at his home by deputies from the Valdez County Sheriff's Office in what must have been an unexpected turn of events for him, and extradited to Clarksville. His bond was set at $500,000. He was charged with the murder of his adoptive parents, but Roger maintained his innocence, pleading not guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. What he failed to take into consideration was that detectives were hard at work gathering up all the evidence necessary for constructing a solid case against him. His trial began on January 2023. During the trial, prosecutors showcased what detectives had managed to unearth throughout the years, and Roger's prospects for a not guilty verdict slowly began diminishing. It was revealed that only a few days after the Campbell's remains were found, law enforcement officers traveled to Georgia in order to question him, and in his truck, they noticed an ominously red-stained sheet tucked away beneath one of its seats. Although testing could not determine whether or not it was actually blood, detectives also discovered traces of Roger's blood found on the surface of a dish soap bottle near the kitchen sink. His upstairs bathroom sink drain was also looked at, and it tested positive for blood. Roger Campbell's ex-wife and son both took to the stand and testified against him. William Sean Campbell, the 35-year-old son of Roger Campbell, fondly remembered having a close bond with his late grandparents. As for his father, he only saw him on very rare occasions throughout his childhood. I've been on this earth 35 years, and in that 35 years, I've spent less than 24 hours around him. Sean Campbell also revealed that shortly after his grandparents' funeral, he learned of an estate auction taking place at their residence. He felt betrayed because his father never reached out to him about keeping any mementos from his grandparents. As for 70-year-old Linda Campbell, Roger's former spouse, she testified in court that 3 days before the Campbells were discovered dead, she worked at the commissary and was paid to register 17, only to see Roger there alongside one of his would-be victims, his mother, Ina Campbell. Before then, Linda hadn't seen or even spoken to Roger for 13 years. He seemed a bit too eager to strike up a conversation with her, only to cut it short after making it explicitly clear that he was only in town for a short while and would be leaving on the 28th of January, which, as fate would have it, was the very same day the Campbells met their gruesome fate. I thought, why do I care when you're leaving? It seemed as if Roger's real motive was to devise an alibi. After examining the crime scene, detectives uncovered 2 .25 caliber shell casings in the victim's room that were linked to one particular firearm. Interestingly enough, only one casing matched a box of ammunition found at the site. The box belonged to the late Bill Campbell. According to Andrew Smith, the proprietor of It's Time Clock Shop, the Campbells owned a very rare Lindskirch grandfather clock. Smith testified that he had been regularly maintaining the Campbell's clock for several years, visiting their residence yearly to make repairs. When Smith saw the clock, he offered Bill Campbell $5,000 for it. As fate would have it, in front of Roger. Bill, however, knew the timepiece was a prized antique, so he refused to part with it. Smith recalled that, in the days following the tragedy, he received a phone call inquiring if he was still interested in purchasing the Lindskirch grandfather clock. Excitedly, he agreed, and was given directions on where to go and inspect it. When Smith got to the Campbell's household, he let the courtroom know how thrilled he was to finally be able to purchase the clock. Unfortunately, instead of his frequent patrons, it was Roger, their adopted son, who greeted him. I said, "Where's your mom and dad?" He seemed nervous, shaky, and said, "Didn't you hear? Mom and dad were shot and killed in the bedrooms." Without hesitation, Smith attempted to put a halt to the sale. However, Roger tried reassuring him, insisting that he was their only heir and that he could do whatever he pleased with his parents' belongings. Smith was eventually convinced and decided to go ahead with the transaction. What Smith found most bizarre was that Roger seemed overly unfazed by his parents' brutal demise as he tried his luck by bargaining for $6,000 instead of $5,000, an attempt that ultimately failed. In the end, Roger agreed to part with his father's clock for only $5,000. Roger's previous testimony also came back to haunt him. He reported to detectives that he had left his parents' home at about 7 a.m. on January 28, 2010, noting that they were still wearing their nightwear when he set off. Forensic specialists determined the time of death was somewhere around 6:20 a.m. prior to Roger's departure from the premises. All in all, prosecutors argued that Roger Campbell was clearly a man influenced by greed. They showcased just how much Roger had financially profited from the crime. They weren't dying fast enough, said Assistant District Attorney Crystal Morgan. That's why he killed them. He needed money, and they weren't dying quick enough. On January 23, 2023, 66-year-old William Roger Campbell was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. Despite the unfortunate presence of hatred and greed in our world, justice is still within reach. Thanks to modern technologies and innovative investigation methods, the truth can now be uncovered or...
Ooh. Most twisted case of all the OnlyFans? I gotta see this one. Top music. Big boy. I'ma take your mama down. I'ma pound it in the ground, let you know. Ooh.
Finding a great vehicle isn't just finding one that's perfect. It's finding one that's perfect for you.
And you see a nigga with some broken bones.
Movement that inspires.
No, I did.
What do I like to do? I like to watch anime. It's animated. It's like cartoons, I guess you could say, but it's Japanese. We play video games. We actually just got like a virtual reality. I mean, we would use like glitches or something like that when we would play on the PC. But I tried to do the whole Twitch streaming thing. Me and my brother were actually like gun enthusiasts.
So when you left your house, everybody was fine.
You don't show the remorse that you should for someone who's lost their family members.
Did you leave the house with your brother Cody looking like that? Or did you leave the house with your father looking like that? Or your mother?
No parent is without flaws, but they generally try their best. While it is true that neglect and mistreatment often manifest themselves as varying degrees of pain and trauma, each case is unique and devastating in its own way. Today's story, however, is not about neglect or an innocent victim of an unfortunate upbringing. It's quite the opposite. Most parents shower their children with unconditional love, hoping that nurturing them in a warm and supportive environment will mold them into responsible and productive contributors to society. But have you ever wondered what happens when children take advantage of that unwavering love? What if you pour your heart into giving them everything, and it's still not enough? On January 25th, 2019, 31-year-old Cody Amato didn't make it to his job as a nurse anesthetist at Orlando Regional Medical Center in Orlando, Florida. This was highly unusual for the driven medical professional who usually showed up early. His co-workers were worried, so they reached out to Cody's girlfriend, who also couldn't get in touch with him. After exhausting all other options, they decided to ask the police in nearby Chulota to check on Amato's house, where he lived with his parents and younger brother, Grant. The officers responded quickly, arriving at the Amato household at around 9:20 a.m. They rang the doorbell and knocked, but no one came to answer. After several attempts to get the attention of somebody inside failed, the two responding officers resorted to using a knife to pry open a side door and eventually gain entry. What they came across, however, was far more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. As they stepped into the house, an unsettling stillness permeated the air, invoking an ominous feeling of dread. Cody Amato was discovered lying in the doorway, clad in his nursing scrubs. His lifeless body bore the consequences of a fatal gunshot wound. Adjacent to him, just 5 feet away, lay a handgun. It was a horrible sight, but the nightmare was far from over. The next body they came across was in the kitchen. It was that of 59-year-old Chad Amato, Cody's father, having suffered 2 horrific gunshot wounds. Resting upon his right hip was a holster with a handgun tucked inside. As for the third and final victim, 61-year-old Margaret Amato was found in her office. She had been shot once in the head. The murder weapon was never found. There were no indications of any forced entry into the Amato residence, and all of the family's valuable possessions, including entertainment systems, televisions, personal computers, and jewelry, remained untouched. Almost everyone in the Amato family who lived in the house was dead, but there was one family member unaccounted for. Cody's brother, Grant, and his cell phone had been disconnected. After a group of armed police officers tracked him down and confronted him at a local hotel, he agreed to accompany them to the police station and sit down for an interview. Grant wasn't told what the purpose of the interview was, nor was he made aware of his family's demise. He just sat silently in the back of the police car the whole way to the station, and he didn't once bother to ask about what was going on. Once at the station, the truly bizarre sequence of events that led to the deaths of Chad, Margaret, and Cody Amato was finally uncovered. The following police investigation with Grant shed some light on this horrible family tragedy. The interrogation is being carried out by detectives Daniel Anderson and Eva Marie Multari, both veteran investigators with extensive experience in homicide cases. Their supervisors are watching the interrogation from a separate room, observing Grant's body language and responses while offering guidance to the detectives through text messages. To start off, Detective Anderson seems friendly and approachable, trying to establish rapport with Grant. One method of doing so is by displaying friendliness or providing a compliment to the suspect based on a characteristic that may hold significance to them. This is often done to get the suspect to let their guard down and hopefully reveal more information. Yet, as we'll come to see on this occasion, going overboard with this strategy results in the interrogation quickly veering off its intended course in a manner that is both frustrating and bizarre.
What do you like to do? What do I like to do? I like to watch anime. It's animated. It's like cartoons, I guess you could say, but it's Japanese. We play video games. We actually just got like a virtual reality headset thingy for like a computer.
Nevertheless, this footage serves as a valuable lesson on what not to do and say when questioning a murder suspect. To start off, Anderson introduces himself and explains to Grant that he and his female colleague are just here to talk.
My name is Danny Anderson, and I'm a deputy
sheriff's office. So we just want to talk to you a little bit.
Notice how Grant still doesn't display concern or appear curious at all about why he was brought in for questioning, considering the number of armed police officers that had swarmed his hotel room earlier this evening.
No.
Most people in Grant's shoes would display some level of anxiety or confusion about the situation. On the contrary, Grant seems strangely nonchalant, almost disinterested in the situation. The interviewing officer then asks Grant about his personal information, such as his occupation, home address, email, and phone number.
Full name?
My full name is Grant Tiernan Amato. T-I-E-R-N-A.
Give me a birth.
May 20th, 1989.
Home address?
Home address is 2112 Salton Circle.
Phone number?
For the home or for...
The home.
Well, I mean, my original cell phone number was 407-687.
It is then that Grant mentions that his original cell number was disconnected by his dad, but doesn't elaborate or give any explanations on why that happened.
You don't have the average move for November, just that was no longer good.
My dad had told me that when he disconnected my service, that he also changed my phone number. So I don't know what the new phone number is,
Gotcha.
but I mean, it's probably like you.
A crucial detail to keep in mind for later. Before we continue, it's important to mention a few details about Grant's background. Grant Amato was a 29-year-old nurse who lived with his parents at 2112 Sultan Circle in Chuluota, Florida. His parents, Margaret, 61, and Chad, 59, were happily married with 3 sons. Jason, the oldest, was Margaret's child from her previous relationship, and Chad decided to adopt him when he was just 3 years old. Later on in their marriage, Chad and Margaret would go on to have 2 kids of their own, Cody and Grant. They both worked incredibly hard throughout their lives and achieved great success. Chad was a pharmacist at CVS Health. He had an immense passion for computers and considered himself a self-taught computer expert. Margaret, on the other hand, worked as a senior operations manager at Nuance Transcription Services. The couple had purchased a second home in Tennessee, where they planned to settle down once they retired. After her family, Margaret's greatest passion in life was horses. In her leisure time, she would often be found at Miracle Lane Stables, tending to Lady, an express horse she rescued in 2009. Margaret was a compassionate, nurturing, and serene individual. Despite the numerous times she was thrown off Lady's back while attempting to train her, Margaret cherished and admired her. Following Lady's passing, Margaret persisted in visiting the stables, providing care for the horses and seeking solace in their presence. The animals had a soothing effect on her, which was especially crucial as the year 2018 progressed and tensions at home escalated. In 2019, the year of our story, Jason had already moved out of the house and was working as a mortgage loan underwriter. As for Grant and Cody, the 2 brothers shared a strong bond growing up. Not only were they siblings, but they were also inseparable best friends. Both attended Timber Creek High School and were actively involved in the weightlifting team. After graduating, they decided to follow in their parents' footsteps by enrolling in a nursing school with the ultimate goal of specializing as nurse anesthetists. The duo shared dreams of owning matching BMWs and living together in their family home in Chuluota, while their parents enjoyed their retirement in Tennessee. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Grant and Cody successfully completed nursing school and became qualified nurses. While Cody excelled in his nursing career, Grant encountered challenges. As originally intended, they both enrolled in a nurse anesthetist program. Cody passed the course with flying colors, but Grant wasn't so fortunate. Despite this setback, Grant was still able to secure a nursing position at Advent Health Orlando, thanks to his existing nursing degree. From there, things looked to be on the upswing for Grant. He had a promising career and was making a good living as a nurse, although nowhere near the amount his brother made.
Damn.
Then, in June 2018, it was discovered that Grant had improperly administered at least 80 bottles of propofol, a potent sedative, to patients whom he believed were not receiving sufficient pain relief. Propofol is a very powerful narcotic that's usually used for putting patients to sleep following surgery.
Oh, he killed
It gained infamy in 2009 for being one of the drugs administered to Michael Jackson, which led to his untimely demise.
Damn.
Following this infraction, Grant faced termination from the hospital and was subsequently arrested by the Orlando police on charges of grand larceny. But thankfully, he was fortunate enough that the hospital ultimately decided not to pursue legal action, thanks in no small part to his family's efforts, particularly his brother Cody, who fronted the cash for Grant's legal fees. While he did manage to escape the legal consequences of his actions, this event had a profound impact on Grant, further contributing to his already tumultuous relationship with his family and causing him to become increasingly more depressed and isolated from everyone. Around this period, he found himself spending countless hours secluded in his bedroom, glued to his computer screen. His sleep patterns became inverted, with days spent in slumber and nights consumed by endless gaming sessions. Not only did his mental well-being suffer, but his physical health also took a toll.
So he went crazy.
His weight plummeted, and his appearance grew ghostly, marked by dark circles beneath his eyes and a deathly pallor to his skin. Contrary to his real-life persona, Grant painted himself a picture of himself online as a rich bachelor and skilled gamer, boasting about his fancy home and luxury car to his group of online friends. His circle of friends remained blissfully unaware of the harsh reality. No one suspected that Grant was actually a 29-year-old nurse who had recently lost his job, lived with his parents, and drove a modest Honda Accord. It certainly didn't help that after getting arrested and being fired from his nursing job, it was pretty much next to impossible for him to get another job in his field. It didn't matter that the charges were ultimately dropped. The damage to his reputation was already done. This obstacle prompted him to explore Twitch streaming as an alternative to traditional employment. He began streaming long hours, playing games in front of a live audience in hopes of receiving monetary support through tips or channel subscriptions.
Yeah, we started using PC games primarily. I haven't turned on my PlayStation in months. I think the only other game that we really played was Fortnite, but then that was starting into like
Kids are all over it.
And actually, yeah, during the time that I wasn't working as a nurse, I tried to do the whole Twitch streaming thing.
What's that?
I'm sorry. No.
You have to explain a lot of this to us.
With Twitch, it's you got your mic and you have your face cam, and then basically people are just watching you play whatever game you're going to say that you're playing.
Okay.
And then,
watching
they
you
donate and subscribe to you, which then you get like a monthly payment.
Was anybody doing that for you?
I think I was up to like 30-something subscribers.
And what was you charging them?
I appreciate it.
With subscriptions, there's 4 tiers of it. Tier 1 is just $5. So right when you see that you blank subscribe to you get $5.
What?
Actually, Twitch pays you every 45 days because you're like an independent self-employed.
No, but saying with their account, like they subscribe to you for a 30-day period?
Yeah.
So every 30 days, they owe you another $5.
If they resubscribe. Right. So then there was that. Tier 2 was like $10. Tier 3 was $15. Then somebody tier 4, it was $24, I think.
And what is that?
Tier 2,
all the higher tiers do is they give you like more emotes, like little things you can put in the chat. So when you're playing, everybody who's in your room can chat about what you're doing or anything random. And then donations are just can range from 1 cent up to however high a person wants.
Definitely going to damn jail.
Nothing really significant. It was like.
So you said about 30 people at one time subscribed to it? So minimum, what?
$150, and then a few donations. But primarily, I guess just keeping myself busy.
Right.
Doing something.
At this stage, it would be rather unusual not to acknowledge Grant's remarkable composure. Despite being acutely aware of the loss of almost his entire family, albeit in secret, Grant maintains an uncannily calm demeanor during the interrogation. He talks about his hobbies and delves into intricate details about his interests as if he were being interviewed for a job or speaking to a friend. Fast forwarding, Grant is asked about his relationship with his family, namely his brother and father. It is then that some hints of a turbulent past start to unravel.
Close with your brother Cody? Let's talk about Cody.
Oh, yeah. Me and Cody.
Who's older than you, right?
He is. I'm the youngest one. I'm 29, he's 31. My oldest brother, Jason, is 35, 36 now.
Who lives at home? All three boys live at home?
No. It's just me and Cody and then mom and dad.
Okay. Tell me about Cody.
Cody. Let's see. Me and Cody had the quintessential rough, like, fighting each other and whatnot when we were younger.
The love hate.
Right.
Typical siblings.
But then I would say, like, my junior year of high school, we were all on the weightlifting team together. That's where I got to know a lot of, like, his guy friends. And, you know, we stopped, like, arguing at that point. And then we all, you know, we decided to go to nursing school together. We decided to go to the nurse anesthesia school together. I mean, we did everything together. I mean,
Who was the better student?
He was the better student in everything up through nursing school, and then I was actually the better student in nurse anesthesia school. But there was like again, kind of like.
Are you guys at the same time in the same classes?
Yeah.
So you're.
But not for nursing school, not for nursing.
No, I mean for anesthesiology.
Yeah, we sat right next to each other.
So you're in there doing things together, so you got somebody to study with.
Yeah.
Somebody to work to bounce things off of.
Yeah, and we would do that all the time. We were burning the midnight oil.
But you were better at it.
Yeah, and that was the one time that he actually admitted that I was didactically more confident than him in that field. And then
Who was better at weightlifting?
Oh, you're lying.
Okay.
He broke a number of school records. I think he was like the 129 weight class. I was the 119 weight class. But he was definitely stronger.
When's the last time your dad put his hands on you?
The last time my dad put his hands on me would be, I'd say, kind of the middle of December of 2018.
What happened?
It's because, you know, with all the money that has been getting spent and, I guess just the mix of everything that I've been saying, just kind of boiling up with him, and the fact that I was, to him, it seemed like I wasn't concerned about it. So, and then plus I was, you know, I wasn't acting like myself with the jovialness and, you know, all that kind of stuff. My father chose to admit me to like a depression or addiction or something like that in Fort Lauderdale. That was December 22nd. Okay. Until I think January 4th.
Did you agree to go?
I didn't, but they said that, you know, this was your only.
Who said?
My dad.
Okay.
And that was in Fort Lauderdale?
Yes.
Did your mom agree to it?
My mom and my brother both agreed, but it was my dad who was like the iron fist, like, this is what's going to happen. Like, you know, he can't.
Why did he say you needed to go? What was his reason?
Because with the way that I was acting, he didn't see that I was doing anything for like the positive. You know, and a lot of it just came back to money with him. He would like allow me to spend money that he had, like with his credit card or something like that. But it's like then whenever I did, it was like a huge problem.
Okay, so you had one of his credit cards.
Yeah.
It's important to point out that Grant's father fully supported him in his efforts to kickstart his Twitch career, offering him his credit card to help buy streaming equipment and advertising for his channel. But despite racking up charges on his father's credit card, everything didn't quite go as planned. While Grant did manage to gain a small following on Twitch, it was nowhere near enough to sustain the lifestyle he had become accustomed to, especially considering his relatively privileged upbringing. Instead of focusing on work, this business experience the incredible story of Clarissa Shields.
I was trained for this gold medal. I'm gonna need exactly what the...
Grant found himself gradually captivated by the world of webcam models. These women streamed live to an audience that paid for conversation and erotic entertainment. Among them, a Bulgarian performer named Sylvie called Grant's attention and soon became the object of his obsession. Night after night, Grant would spend hours watching Sylvie's webcam performances, each minute costing him 90 of the website's native tokens currency. Grant would buy thousands of these tokens, spending around $600 each night.
Alright, Sylvia, look at me. I'm outside going to check the mail. And I'm asking you if you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I love it so much when you just send them to me. Yeah, I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one though?
He presented himself to her as a rich professional video game streamer. To maintain this facade, Grant lavished Sylvie with money and sent lingerie and toys for her to try on and play with during her online shows. Captivated by the positive response he received from the stunning model when he showered her with gifts and money, Grant eventually convinced himself that he had a genuine romantic connection with Sylvie. This belief only fueled his excessive spending and obsessive behavior.
Nigga was addicted to OnlyFans.
Okay, so you had one of his credit cards.
Yeah. You go, what?
And what were you buying with it?
Well, what I was doing is, over the past 4 months or something like that, I've been talking to this woman online. She's embarrassing because she's a cam model.
And what does she charge you? By the minute, by the hour?
Minute.
Okay. And how much is it?
A minute?
Oh god, I think it was like 90 tokens a minute, and it's like the conversion rate for all of that is $600 for like 5,000 or something tokens or something like that. So, and then it was 4 hours a night.
$600.
So I mean that's basically just where all my costs went to. Was you pay real money for the tokens, and you use the company's digital currency for.
Okay. So how much do you think you spent?
It's probably close to like $200,000.
$200,000.
$200,000 of his family's money to satisfy his obsession with Sylvie. He lied to his family, telling them all that money was being spent to promote his Twitch channel. Obsessions with online personalities are not uncommon in today's society. Many people, like Grant, often become infatuated with someone they have never met in person and develop an unhealthy obsession with them. If left unchecked, this can rapidly escalate into destructive behavior, such as excessive spending, neglecting responsibilities, and in some cases, violence.
But based on what you're telling me, only so many people make so much money. I think just have people make
you spent $200K to send somebody tokens on an OnlyFans
starts with a line, and then I would be like one of those people. Because I was good at the games, and I'm
you killed your family
funny and pleasant person.
so you can get money to spend on
So I guess to like bring it all back with why I was brought to Cornerstone. It was a mix of all of those things.
As we've already said, this is a lie. Grant's real motivation was his intense infatuation with Sylvie, not his streaming career. He believed that by showering her with gifts and money, he would eventually win her over. Grant couldn't lie forever though, and his family could only tolerate his behavior for so long. Sooner or later, a confrontation was inevitable. Grant Amato did not deserve the support of his family. Despite his months of deceit and theft, they stood by him, even as he continued to lie and steal. Chad, his father, went so far as to take out a second mortgage on their house to cover the debt Grant had accrued. This included the expenses for Grant's legal troubles related to the grand theft charges resulting from his medication theft. Chad eventually discovered that Grant was fraudulently attempting to obtain a line of credit in his, Chad's, name. Rather than reporting it, Chad chose to protect his son from further trouble. In doing so, Chad's paternal instincts, his love for his son, overwhelmed his sense of judgment. This was a grave mistake, one that would have devastating consequences. In December, there was a glimmer of hope in Grant's situation. The aforementioned grand theft charges against him were dropped, providing some measure of relief to his father. Grant, Cody, and another friend then went on a long-awaited trip to Japan, a destination they had dreamed of visiting for many years. Cody generously covered all expenses for both himself and Grant, amounting to almost $10,000. But any hope of better days was short-lived. Upon Grant's return, he swiftly reverted back to his old ways. His persistent lack of employment and swooning over Sylvia became sources of daily conflict between him and his father. On December 19th, 2018, Grant stormed out of the house after a particularly intense argument with Chad. He texted his mother, telling her he felt tired of everything and wanted to handle it his own way. Concerned for her son's well-being, Margaret promptly reported Grant as missing to the police, telling the officers that Grant was struggling with depression and felt worthless. But as it turned out, Grant's coping mechanism wasn't to wallow in self-pity, but to simply find someplace else where he could continue to do exactly what he had been doing. He had driven to his aunt Donna Amato's house in Apopka, Florida, approximately 42 miles west of Chicoloata. Upon arrival, Donna noticed Grant's gaunt appearance and evident fatigue. Of course, she welcomed him in, glad he had come to visit. Throughout his stay, Grant spent his days asleep and his nights awake and online. During this time, Donna began noticing suspicious charges on her bank account were popping up. The charges came from none other than the Cam Girls website, where Grant had been interacting with Sylvie. Alarmed by this revelation, Donna promptly contacted Chad to inform him of his son's activities. Chad begged her not to press charges. Cody also talked to Donna, promising to pay her back all the money Grant had stolen from her. Donna was totally confused, and just when she thought things couldn't get any weirder, Chad Amato completely broke down on the phone. He told her about all the trouble Grant had been causing them lately, and how much they had to shell out to clear his debts. Later, Donna had this to say to the detectives. He told me on the phone, "Yeah, I'm going to have to work for a few more years than I thought I'd have to, but it's okay. I'll do it for Grant. I don't want him to go to jail."
I spoke to the therapist, the psychiatrist, and all that stuff. I didn't need any medications for anything. They had analyzed it as this is an isolated event. You've been out of work, you have this PTSD from the whole getting arrested thing, and I mean, the last thing on my record was I think a speeding ticket back when I was at UCF. And then, just having all of that stuff going on. But then they had signed me up, I think, to be there for 60 days. But then I was only there until January 4th. So my brother, Cody.
On December 22nd, 2018, Chad, Margaret, Jason, and Cody decided to have a serious talk with Grant. They went over to Donna's place and told Grant that he needed to seek help. They then drove him to a rehab center in Fort Lauderdale, where he was to undergo a 60-day program to address his issues with addiction.
Your business made limitless. That's Life Unlimited.
I don't even know how.
Send and receive your thanks.
I don't even know how they get so addicted
Now
to
on
other things.
Hi folks, I'm Pro Angler Mark Rose.
Cody had promised to cover the full cost of the treatment program. However, on January 4th, 2019, Grant left the program after about 2 weeks, claiming the doctors told him he was fine and didn't need any more treatment.
Sure, I told the doctor.
Was he telling the truth? Considering his history of lying and manipulation, it's hard to say for sure. Overall, however, you didn't have to be a doctor to tell that Grant still had a long way to go on this recovery journey.
I told the doctor, hell no. Keep that nigga for 3 months. Then send him back. 3 months. You got internet. What?
I thought you said you went on the 22nd.
Right. Yeah, that's when I went. Yeah, it was Africa. Yeah. And it was because when I had gotten back, my mom and dad were, you know, dealing with a lot of the financial stuff while we were up there. And then when I got back, that's when my dad started to get really kind of overbearing. And, I mean, rightfully so. I know what I did, but it's like with him, it was every single day, hours a day, hours a day. He'd come home from work, and then he would just talk about the same exact thing over and over and over and over and over again. And
did he get heated?
He would get heated, but
how about you? Did you get heated?
No, I mean, I was always the person in the family where, like, my brother Cody would interrupt my dad when he was talking. My mom would interject and say, you can't be saying that or whatever. But for me, I would just sit there and I would just let my dad talk so that he could say everything that he wanted to say. And then if I saw that it was something that he wanted me to respond to, then I'd respond. But I would never be heated to him, especially if I felt like I was in the wrong.
Right. Too old as you think you were in the wrong?
I mean, yeah.
To some extent.
To some extent, you know. Spending that amount of money, it's idiotic to do that, you know. Especially when you're not making
$200,000.
Right.
When was the last time that you and your dad did have, you know, a heated conversation?
It would be Thursday. Because one of his rules was that I wasn't allowed to talk to the woman anymore that I had been talking to.
Correct.
But
nigga, you was spending
I guess you could say behind the
just
scenes,
to talk to a
my mom would
OnlyFans
let me
model.
talk to her through her cell phone and Twitter.
What is wrong with you?
And, you know, she would tell me, like, look, you have to keep it just basic, because if you say anything or if you entice anything or do anything like that, it might lead her to say something to, like, my dad or something like that.
While Grant was in rehab, Chad managed to get on his computer and reach out to Sylvie, letting her know the truth about Grant, that he was unemployed, living with his parents, and stealing from them just so he could buy her gifts and talk to her. Sylvie, upon finding out, seemed to have lost interest in communicating with Grant. Grant claims that Chad and Cody wiped his computer clean and set a password on it so he couldn't access it when he got back home.
He had apparently found out that I was speaking to her again. And when I came back on the 4th, my mom picked me up from the Cornerstone place. And then me and my mom met my dad at California Pizza Grill and Kitchen in Waterford Lakes. And he had this list, front and back, on a piece of paper of all the rules. This is what's going to happen. This is why I'm acting the way that I'm going to act. I'm not going to be Dad anymore. I'm going to be Chad. And I basically told him that I'm going to be present. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to start trying to get jobs now. I told him what my plan was. You know, it wasn't really my intention to continue talking to this woman, but it just kind of happened. And then because there was like that emotional connection, I guess you could say, between her and me, like I like, you know, it felt like a relationship. You know, I didn't want to just stop cold turkey on it.
The day after rehab, Chad took Grant to the California Pizza Kitchen in Waterford Lakes for some lunch and a chat. At the restaurant, Chad pulled out a handwritten list of rules from his pocket that Grant had to follow if he wanted to keep living at home.
Must have any day shift job. 60 days. Damn, I can't even curse. No. Oh, sleep. Fuck. I can't. Let me get my ass up. Oh, I think I hit my ribs. Fuck. Grant must present a plan written of his not in list to dismissal from the home. Must have any day shift job within 60 days. Well, with leads 90 days. Right now, hardware office, no overnight positions. Must show us job applications submitted. Just like, what the fuck? No post midnight internet use. No 8 p.m. midnight online. No valid midnight sleep rule. No more allow all-nighters online. TV. And then the only way to monitor his rules with my deception meaning install new ATT indies and patiently equipment for logging
According to the rules, Grant had to cut back on staying up all night online and find a job. His parents wouldn't cover his phone bill anymore. They canceled his old plan and set him up with a new one that doesn't have data. He also had to repay any debts to the family and go back to therapy.
Right, and one of the stipulations was that he told me at the dinner was, if you speak to this woman again, you're out of the house. I'm kicking you out. You can pack up your and then you're off my property. And then, because of the way that he used to be, he had told me that basically if that happens, that if I ever step back onto his property, that he would kill me. So, you know, on Thursday, that all happened.
Notice how he tries to position himself as the victim in this situation, claiming that his dad threatened to hurt him. But it's clear from the phone call with Donna and everything we've heard and seen that Chad was far from the type of father to wish harm upon his own child. In fact, Chad was doing everything in his power to help Grant get back on the right track and only trying to set boundaries for his own son's well-being. It's also worth mentioning that it had been well over an hour into this interrogation, yet Grant still doesn't seem too concerned with what's happening or why he was brought here. In the end, Grant goes on to recount how he was told by Chad that he was not allowed unmonitored access to the internet, could not have a smartphone, and was forbidden from contacting Sylvie. If he got caught violating any of these rules, Grant would be kicked out of the house right away. Needless to say, Grant was not happy with this new arrangement, but he had no choice. If he did not agree to those terms, he had a grand total of 2 options: become homeless and live on his own, or join the military. But instead of stepping up and vowing to do better, Grant opted to try and circumvent these rules by taking advantage of his mother's kindness. As Grant put it, he managed to persuade his mother to lend him her phone so that he could get in touch with Sylvie. This was a fool's gambit destined to fail. And when Chad eventually found out about this, you can imagine his reaction. Chad was furious. Upon learning of what his son's been up to, he followed through on his threat and ordered Grant out.
I was getting all my stuff together. I was piecemealing it out to the car, and then, you know, I interviewed on Friday. So I got off my car. I was trying to just get all of my necessities the best I could from, you know, a lifetime of living inside the house. And then, my brother was working that night, and I think he was working like one of his long nights, but he ended up getting off early. And then I had met with my brother before he came home, just like in the neighborhood area. And then it was just on the, like the back side of the house, like along, I don't remember what that road's called, but it's like you take the bend where it has those 2 blinking lights, and then it's just down that road a ways.
Not for Christmas.
Is it before Christmas when you still turn the corner?
I think so. I'm not sure. I think so.
Well, it was just down that road. And then I basically brought him up to speed, and he had told me that he was going to do whatever.
What time was that thing?
What time was that?
What time did you go to, back up a second, I apologize. You, Mom, and Dad go to California Pizza Kitchen in Waterford at what time?
Oh, that was all the way back on January 4th.
Oh, you said Thursday.
No, that wasn't Thursday.
No, that was when I had come back from corner stuff. He was giving me the rules.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Let's do Thursday then.
What happened? That Thursday did you meet with Cody down the street? This past Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that.
After you and your dad argued.
After me and my dad had argued, he had told me, you know, this is how it's going to be, and, you know, all that stuff.
Okay. This is at the house.
Should I say that nigga jail?
Yeah. Okay. Because this is what, Saturday? So, past Thursday I got you.
So
So
he was killing
then, yeah,
niggas in the
I spoke
hospital.
with Cody. He told me about all that. He had given me his debit so that, because I mean, I don't have any money and I don't know where to go. You know, I've never been out of the house on my own. And then the last thing that I was told was just that, you know, basically once again that he'll take care of it because this is Cody.
What time is this?
I'd say a little after 10:30ish at night.
10:30.
Thursday night.
At night.
And then, yeah, so then after that, I just like stayed in that in the vicinity area for a number of hours. And then I had remembered over some of the nights when I would work overnight, then I'd be able to come, like, get off early, that the Publix on 50, on Colonial, the one that's by the Tractor Supply.
419, yeah.
That Publix, it's like their guest Wi-Fi is always still active even when the store closes down. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go there because I have my Surface. And I can, you know, check on my emails. I had to pull up the address to my interview because I don't have GPS. So then I would, like, write all that stuff down. And then I was basically just waiting in that parking lot until I had to leave to go to the interview. And then, I mean, that was the last, because again, it's like, no cell phone service. I mean, email was literally like my only form of communication. And then, you know, yeah, I didn't have any, I went to the DoubleTree because I was like, I can't just stay in my car again all night.
Right. And how did you pay for that?
I paid for it with my debit card.
Your debit card?
Yeah. And I think there was like $400 or $300 something still left on it.
Okay.
How did you get that?
The DoubleTree? I think I got there around 3 or 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Friday.
Seen the nigga, yo.
And then, yeah, then I was just, I mean, I would, like, go out to my car so I get, like, a bottle of water or something like that, or if I forgot something, you know, just like necessity was. And then I was just there the whole night.
Talk to Cody, talk to Mom, talk to
No, I couldn't talk to anybody because I didn't have...
But you had the phone in the room.
Oh, yeah, I did have the phone in the room.
If it's not obvious already, Grant is trying to distance himself from what happened to his family by building an alibi for himself, claiming he'd been away, waiting for a job interview, and that he met up and talked to Cody after getting kicked out, with Cody generously handing him his debit card. Notice how he mentions Cody told him he was going to take care of it, indirectly alluding to his brother having some sort of involvement in what happened to his family. But what Grant doesn't know is that the detectives had already been to the crime scene and even questioned some of the family neighbors and close friends. They knew exactly at what time Grant left the house, who was in the house when he left, and why Cody came back from work so early. When responding officers at the Amato residence, something about how the bodies of certain family members were discovered immediately raised red flags with the police detectives. To start, there were 2 pools of blood beneath Cody, one larger than the other. This suggested he had been moved post-mortem. There were also bullets placed strategically around the murder scene, corresponding to the number of times each victim had been shot.
Damn. He going to jail.
Get a great deal on the vehicles that winter is no match for during the Jeep wrap-up the year sale.
However, their positioning seemed unnatural, as if someone had staged them to fit a certain narrative. Furthermore, the angle at which Chad had been shot meant he should have been lying face down, but he was lying face up, suggesting someone had turned him over. Then there was the holster with the handgun in it, which was found on Chad's right hip. It was a cross-draw holster, meaning that Chad, who was right-handed, should have been wearing it on his left hip. But why would Chad be wearing a holster inside his home in the first place? Because whoever it was who moved him wanted it to look like there was a confrontation, that Chad managed to get a good look at the murderer before being struck down himself. Considering the gun discovered besides Cody's lifeless body, it becomes quite evident towards whom the crime scene was intended to direct suspicion. From the looks of it, considering whoever committed these murders obviously didn't one to do all of this that he suddenly snapped and decided to murder his family before turning the gun on himself. And what would that person do should he find himself sitting in an interrogation room? He tried to spin the narrative in a way that would incriminate Cody.
It's like it's back there in the country.
So you and Cody meet, and it's approximately what time? I know it's the down like what is the exact thing? What time did you get there?
Like 10:30, 10:30, something like that.
How long did you talk to him for?
Only about 10 minutes or so.
And what was the conversation?
The conversation was basically that he was brought up to speed, you know, and that he would take care of it.
He was brought up to speed by what?
He was brought up to speed on like why I'm out here.
Who brought him up to speed?
My mom.
Oh, so you talked to him?
Yeah.
He told you that mom that you can't talk to him.
Right.
Since the argument or when?
Since I had left.
You left the house at approximately when?
I left the house at like.
When did I leave the house? Dark?
It was dark. It was after 9 p.m. But I just don't remember.
So between 9 and approximately 10:30,
right.
You leave.
Right.
Go down to sit on for Christmas. Cody wants to talk to you about 10 minutes. At some point, your mom has spoken to Cody based on what the conversation happened. Correct.
Correct.
And she told him what had happened between you and your dad. Right. Okay.
Do you think that's why Cody left work?
I mean,
I don't know.
Because no, he never said why he left work, but in my mind, I was just thinking, oh, he had been let off work early like three times already this week, so I was like
10-15 minutes you talk to Cody. What's he driving?
He drives a 96 or 97 Honda Accord.
Okay. You have a conversation, and he leaves to go home.
Right.
And you leave to go where?
And then I stay in that general area just so that
I'm gonna take your mama
if anything happens, somebody like knows where I am.
Okay.
I stay there for.
You don't want me around. I'll be your stepdaddy for another.
I mean, like a couple hours, I would say.
Just that same area where you were talking about?
Like, I would go, like, kind of just up and down that road a little bit, just at my cars and just, like, sitting there. But for the most, yeah, I mean, I was staying in that general area, and then I decided to go to Publix.
Grant just made a grave, but not too uncommon mistake. He locked himself into an easily disprovable story by telling the detectives where he'd been, and being generous enough to spill out time frames. He made the detectives' jobs much easier.
Damn.
Now, if they can just prove that he was somewhere else at those specific times, though, for example, witness statements, surveillance footage, or tracking digital footprints, then it would significantly bolster any case brought against him.
I had used Cody's card to pay for one of my bills that was outstanding. It was just one of those from that site. It was just like a bill that had backed up in there. $5.99.
He paid $600 for a cam girl session using Cody's card. Keep this little detail in mind, because the time and place in which this purchase was made will prove crucial later on.
This nigga was still addicted to OnlyFans?
Believe in your mind that your dad can hurt you.
Yeah.
He can hurt your mom.
Yeah.
He can maybe hurt Jason.
Yeah.
He's a violent guy. I'm sorry, I've been in a long time. He sounds like a violent guy.
Yeah.
Quick to lose his temper with him over minuscule stuff.
Minuscule stuff, yeah.
I get the point he's upset about the amount of money. I do get that. But physically, he's abusive.
Yeah.
And it's kind of embarrassing as you're an adult male right now. He's been abusive to you for years, has he not?
Yeah. I mean, more mentally over the course.
But it has been to the point where you as a 29-year-old male, right, 29? That you're afraid that your father could kill you.
Yeah.
Anderson is attempting to manipulate Grant's emotions, fooling him into thinking he's got an ally in his corner. When used effectively, this tactic can get a suspect comfortable enough to lower their guard and feel safer talking, potentially revealing more information that could later be used against them in court. When not used effectively, it can come off as fake and even patronizing, further alienating the suspect and reinforcing their determination to stick to their story. We'll see by the end of this interrogation which way it goes. detectives.
At the house, I mean, I have like no access to anything. So I mean, it's literally just like me, and you know,
Damn.
So like I told you,
How long this nigga keep talking?
like you know, anything to defend myself.
They say you know
like
you really got
I
it.
sold all my guns.
Does Cody have guns in the house?
He does, but they're like locked up somewhere.
Dad have guns in the house?
Again, yeah, but they're locked up somewhere.
And you don't have access to them?
I don't even have a house key. I don't have a house key. I don't have any keys to the doors inside the house. All I had was my car key.
After getting Grant's version of events, the detectives now have a clear picture of what Grant claims went down. Now is the time to start poking holes in his story. But before they do that, they need to get one obvious detail out of the way.
Why do you think we're having this conversation?
I honestly don't know, but I'm pretty freaked out at this point because, you know, it's, I mean, I know, like, how the situation was when I left, and, you know, I thought that it was weird to begin with that I hadn't gotten any communication whatsoever. I mean, like I told you, my brother, Cody, the last time, when I was away from the house, that he was the one who outreached to me via email, because, again, I didn't have my phone or anything like that. I mean, I thought that it was weird, but I had just been kind of putting it out of my mind, thinking, okay, you had to go to work, or they were busy, or something.
When you were in your room, hanging out, watching TV?
No, I didn't turn on the TV. I had on just like music in the background, just kind of help me go to sleep.
Are you sure about that? Because the hotel, it's weird, and I didn't know this. I used to travel a lot for work. They can tell because of the TV every channel has been on when the TV is turned off. Because I guess they have a problem. Yeah, I guess they have a problem with people stealing from that.
Oh,
so those things are well monitored. Even though it looks like a cheap.
Yeah. I never even touched the TV remote. I didn't turn on that TV at all. I was just using my service to like watch YouTube initially.
Anderson is about to severely overplay his hand here. He's going to try to get a confession, but he does it in a manner so obvious that Grant immediately sees through it.
Now's the time to come to Jesus, be honest, because you're holding something back. I can see in your eyes. People don't believe that the police will help you, but we are actually going to help you with issues you may have. I think something happened, and you don't want to tell us, but right now is the time to get it off your chest. And I really wish you would, because it will make you feel better in the end.
I genuinely don't have anything else that I can say about the night or, you know, the period of time afterwards.
Anderson's approach here is not standard procedure, and for good reason. It's predictable, outdated, and only really has a chance of working against suspects who are emotional or on the verge of a breakdown, none of which apply to Grant. On the contrary.
Nigga, what? Always with the fucking ass.
Grant remains calm and collected, showing no signs of anxiety or guilt. When he doesn't get the response he was hoping for, Anderson will begin fumbling with his own words, resorting to nonsensical analogies that portray a nervous demeanor, which only seems to bolster Grant's self-confidence.
You saw nothing that was out of the ordinary?
No.
In the Fort Christmas area or 419 area?
No, I mean...
Did you even get up to the Lake Mills Fort Christmas area where that guy's blinking lights are?
No. When I came back, I didn't come up to there.
There is, and you're better electronics than I am. I'm going to do that. There's a digital footprint, and there's ways to see things that we know that don't make sense. Even though your phone may not have service, there's still issues with the phone.
Right.
And it was on you the entire time.
Yeah.
And you left the house until you were in touch with law enforcement.
I can track places you've been, and I know where you've been, and I know what time you've been there. And what everything you're telling me isn't just copacetic, it doesn't add up. Because there's what I think, what you think, what she thinks, and then there's things that are hard facts you can't get away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think something happened at the house based on my knowledge right now, and you're afraid to say it, you're afraid to come back and say that I was a victim, I was hurt, I had something that happened there that I don't want to tell because it's something may be embarrassing or not good, but
I got you, my boy.
That I can let on right now. and things you're not telling me. I can't help you if you won't let me help you.
So where's the missing piece? What have we missed here?
I mean, when I had come back that other time, I crossed in front of the dude's fence, the red blinking lights ones.
What time was that?
I can't remember.
That was Friday during the day, when you said you were going to come back.
Right, yeah.
Okay. But it was after you did your interview.
Correct.
Okay. If you did that, you would have seen something, and there would be something out of the ordinary that you would have seen. If you passed that, you passed something out of the ordinary. What was it?
I saw like a news van, and then I don't think there might have been like a cop car there. There was like traffic being
Human nature. Human nature. What do people do when I go back to my old neighborhoods? And I've lived a couple places in Central Florida in the 23 years I've been here. I see something major going on. I get on my phone, I get on my computer, just find look. I wonder what's happening in my neighborhood, and look.
Did that even spark your attention?
There's a digital footprint of where I went on my phone. It's right on your phone. They can tell me I looked at these maps on my phone because it's on there. The memory's there. You can't delete it. You can't. You came back to the neighborhood. You saw some things that are really out of the ordinary, and I don't believe for a second that you thought that I'm not going to look what's going on. What happened to my neighborhood?
I mean, I didn't search it up on anything, on any of the devices that I have.
Did you search it somewhere else? Remember, like I said, I know some things that you don't know, and honesty will get you all the things I can do for you. Be honest, I can't deal with someone who lies to me, but I'll deal with someone and help them till the end, no matter what. Believe it or not, that's just me, and she'll tell you. It's what it is. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to say if I can do something that can help you, I'm going to help you. And every one of us make mistakes.
Damn, they had this nigga
phone in the heat of the moment to protect ourselves or to protect somebody else.
This is an example of an effective interrogation tactic. Anderson presents a plausible narrative in which the suspect is absolved of any wrongdoing. If Grant takes the bait and backtracks on his previous statement, he's as good as done for.
I know better. Listen to me. I know better. I can help you, Grant, with honesty. I can help you with honesty.
We think something else happened before you left the home that you're either afraid of or embarrassed to talk about. But we need to know exactly what happened because, like Danny said, we can place you there at certain times. And so we need to know what happened before you left that house because you didn't leave with everything being okay.
I honestly, I don't have anything else that I can really say.
Detective Altari notices Anderson's attempts aren't working and interjects here and there with useful questions that propel the investigation forward. If it weren't for her, this interrogation may have completely derailed at this point.
This is the time to come to Jesus, to be honest. Because you know more. I'm looking in your eyes tell me exactly that you are hurting inside. I get it. Brother, I get it.
Bringing up religion here only serves to waste valuable time. Keep in mind, they suspect Grant's responsible for killing 3 of his own family members. Also, he could be with a cam model he never met, so trying to exploit his sense of morality is unlikely to yield any results.
You gotta come to me with the truth now, because I already know the truth. Here's the chance. You can shake your head no and say I don't know. You do know, and I know you know. She knows. She knows you know.
There's a reason you didn't go back to the house. There's a reason why you haven't tried to reach out. I mean, it's odd you haven't heard from anybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's words that like I can't think of to even say. But I'm assuming that, you know, when you see that there's a shooting somewhere and it's around and it has to do with my family.
Your family has no known enemies. Nobody has a problem with it. Nobody.
Right.
Continue what you were saying. You said.
But I mean, it's like I don't know how to even say the words.
Well, give me a roundabout what you're thinking.
That somebody in my family's dead.
Now's the time, my friend. I want to help you. She wants to help you. And I'm telling you, I'm going to help you. Anything I can do within my power to be honest with you. I'm going to. That's it. But I gotta have the truth from you. I can't get it from somebody else. I can't get it from her. I can't get it from other people I work with. It got to come from you. I already know. I'm telling you, I already know. I got a couple more years, I'll retire. I'm going to take life through it, maybe happy with what I've done, because I've been honest with everybody. I'm asking you to be honest with me too. I want to help you.
I mean, apart from times, maybe.
I'm gonna go to sleep. Oh, fuck that shit. I ain't talking too long. Man, he killed him. Everybody knows it. He killed his family for own female. Fuck wrong. I'm finna go my ass sleep, I'm tired. Bitch ass niggas, you killing my vein.